Good evening, good afternoon, and good night. I think I got that backwards, but welcome from under the dome here at FOJC Underground Church. Tonight we're going to be doing the Truman Show Decoded Mystery Conspiracy Theater, and I'm really stoked for this one. Really stoked for this one. Like last time we did a Terminator. That was our second episode out of the gate for the Truman Show Decoded Mystery Conspiracy Theater. We covered Indiana Jones, we covered Back to the Future, we've covered the Terminator. But tonight we're going to be going down the Truman Show Decoded Mystery Conspiracy Theater. So with that being said, as we always have a Sunday Night Live every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, but I'm going to be the host today. But where is my buddy David at? Do y'all know where my buddy David is? My buddy David. Oh, that's not David. Is that Bob Ross? No, that's not Bob Ross. Is that Sanctified Bob Ross? Is that you, Brother Adam, in the house? How the heck are you? Welcome to the program. Welcome back to FOJC Underground Church. Sorry about that, Brother Adam, but I could not resist it. I could not resist it because Brother David, a year or so ago, gave you the title of Sanctified Bob Ross. So bless you, Brother Adam. Thank you for being with me tonight here and being a co-host with me tonight on this Truman Show Decoded Mystery Conspiracy Theory. Welcome back. How are you?
Well, thanks for having me back, and really excited to get into this. I haven't watched this movie for a long time, and to be quite honest, after checking it out again, I felt physically ill. But there's so much to dig into in this. It's really it can go very deep, and there's talk about predictive programming and all kinds of whisperings of what do you call it? I guess putting seeds of doubt in people's hearts about things as well. But so lots to get into, and yeah, thanks for having me back on. Excited to be here with you.
It's always an honor, Brother Adam. Always an honor, man. We haven't done one for a long time. I think the last episode we did together was Drawn Living Waters on my visual disturbance, and we aired it here on FOJC. So thankful that you're here with me tonight. And Brother David, get you a bucket of popcorn, get you a 32-ounce coffee, Brother David, and everybody out there in the audience. If you haven't been here at FOJC before, if you haven't been at this platform, this ministry, we go and cover all kinds of different things all throughout academia world and different things to do with Nephilim and giants. But tonight we're going to the Truman Show from under the dome, literally. You know, when we talk about the firmament, this channel, we believe in the earth is the biblical cosmology. And me and Brother Adam are going to take it down the rabbit hole it goes when it comes to this Truman Show. And it literally is a Truman Show. So let's jump into it. So speaking of the Truman Show right off the bat, Brother Adam, did you know that the man that's above, of looking down from heaven, he is in the lunar body of the moon, this artificial moon, and he is literally, his name is, the creator is Christoph. And I thought that was a slap in the face here, especially when you talk about the Messiah and Jesus Christ. And from right out of the gate, just 10 seconds into the film, Christ of, and then this gentleman that is in the luminary body, the moon, that's dictating every move he makes, left, right, foot, right, everything, whatever he's doing from newborn out of the womb all the way to adulthood. And it becomes, it comes to bite him in the foot, so to speak. Because these things that this man has done, it terrorizes and traumatizes the individual. We're going to get into that. It's pretty interesting. So, Adam, what do you say about that? The Christoph, I mean, there you go, right out of the gate, blaspheming. And we're going to show and decode so many different things. This is just a few seconds here. Adam, you engage anytime and step in any time here. So just What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been doing a lot of deep diving into um, just pulling up scriptures and stuff that have to do with basically Jesus being the creator. You know, it's very plain in scripture, and yeah, it's like they wasted no time to get out the gate and already start. I mean, seems like blasphemy, with all of this, but just by naming this guy, that, and it's interesting too because a lot of movies you'll see they put like the actual actors and performers and directors and stuff at the beginning, like they have like a little introduction credits. So they did that this time, but they superseded, they didn't say Jim Carrey or anything like that. They went into the fictitious creator of the show right out the gate. So I found that kind of interesting.
It truly is, and I agree with that statement. It is. It's right out of the gate. Absolutely, brother Adam. So Jim Carrey I mean, it's literally within 1 minute of the program, Jim Carrey's looking through a mirror, and mind you, folks, this is a 1998 film, and Jim Carrey played this kid named Truman and grew up to be an adult. So here's the kicker though. There's all these cameras from, let's just say, the trees, the bushes, the toilets, the everything on his wrist, whatever it is, they're everywhere. Okay, it's insane what they've done, and it makes you think about our reality today, right? With all these technological so-called advancements and these, we have this omniscient presence of cameras everywhere where the airwaves can be monitored. And me and brother Adam's going to be talking about it here after a while too, about Stargate, etc., all these different applications coming to our realm. And it's interesting about this dystopian future. And is everything will be monitored, right? So Jim Carrey's getting monitored from a newborn out of the womb to being a young adult and into a manhood. Well, I want to bring something to your all's attention. During this scene right here, he makes these very apparent commentary with it. He's talking about his legs being broken. And he's going to go up that hill, this high mountain. He's basically giving up. He's talking to himself in a way, in a figuratively sense, that he's going to give up, so to speak. He's depressed or anxiety or whatever have you. So he makes these comments about going to this great summit, reaching the great summit, and he said, "Please use my food or my body as an alternative food source." That's what he says, and he says, "Ooh, gross." Well, there's a lot of things you can go on and look in our world, and there's certain things that you can't say on YouTube. It's too hot for YouTube. But I would say that in 1998, when this program came out, and you look at Solid Green, and you look at these different terminologies, and you look at things that make your hair stand on the top of your head, literally, when these applications of, let's just say, this alternative source. And I thought that was so sick and demented the way it was presented, right out of the gate. And we're going to get into it. There's this show. This show is going to be bringing a lot of decoding and a lot of exposure. So we're going to try to not be too harsh with this, a lot of people's favorite movie, but we're going to bring up the biblical truth and biblical sense of understanding, like, what is this and why is this important? Why is this important? Because this is what we watch. We've been watching this filth for generations, and it's insane. So on to the next one. His pal, they're doing like this little interview at the beginning of the introduction. His pal's saying everything's real. It's just, everything is just, nothing's fake. It's all real, but it's simply controlled. So boom. So I thought about our paradigm today. I thought about how it's always he said, she said, right? Or there's always this dictation of like fear tactic. There's a fear tactic upon the land. There's been a fear tactic for the past 5 years. Heck, for probably a longer than that. So you look at the applications that they dispose upon us, and they're like, everybody's expected to just continue on this nonsense, right? And then you hear the terms like, well, we're waking up from the Matrix, all this new age ideology, which I think is just so absurd. So he goes on and he talks about, Truman's real, blah, 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 and all this different things. He's explaining to it's a real life show, and we have real lives. And then I even took the part out, though, his wife that's supposedly married to Truman talks on there and says, I'm totally content. I totally love my life, and it's totally real. And so she's a liar from out of the gate. And we're going to see where she becomes a liar on down this show. And And we're going to talk about what the Bible says about what these applications are doing in this predictive programming, planting seed in your skull. And then one that, 1988, there's kids already grown now, and now they can't even understand what marriage is really about. So, because all this filth is being disposed in front of them. So it's pretty sick. So these next couple slides, pretty shocking. Okay. So right out of the first part of this film, at the intro of it, the introduction, they have this, let's just say, opening scene where Jim Carrey is showed here on the day 10,909. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I just wanted to bring this up here for the context to keep it in sync with the movie here. So he comes up and he's like, "Hey, neighbors." And he said, "Good afternoon, good evening, and good night." I got that totally backwards at the beginning of the program there, Adam. But I think Sanctified Bob Ross didn't mind what I did. You feel me? So everybody out there, give a big shout out to Adam. So Jim Carrey is waving. "Hey, everybody." And it's like repetitive loop. And then if you notice the number 36, there's a lot to break down on this. But for the sake of time, we got like another 200 slides. But hey, we'll go back to these numerologies and numbers. But there's a 36 above him, right? He's waving. "Hey, neighbors." And they're like, "Hi, Truman. Hi, how you doing?" Well, if you notice there on the fence post, it says 32. There's going to be a lot of 32s, a lot of different cultic numbers and numerology, which I don't like to get into, but I'm going to bring it up because of the sake of this video, the sake of this broadcast, because we're decoding Truman Show. So how apparent this stuff is, there's these numerology in this film. So he goes and he waves at his neighbors. He's getting ready to go to his Ford Taurus. I think that's what he's got. And all of a sudden, this 101 Dalmatian. Okay, a Dalmatian rolls up. You get that in the Disney World 101. 101 Dalmatian rolls up. And you know what's so compelling about this? Because I've got a tie-in. I've got a tie-in from our previous Mystery Conspiracy Theater, and it's really going to rock y'all's world. So just hang on to your seat. So Pluto sits there and he gets up. He's like, "Oh, there's Truman, right? Here comes the dog." And then all of a sudden he goes, "Hey, Pluto." So Pluto the dog, 101 Dalmatian, there's Pluto, and he's watching. He's observing Trump, and you think to yourself and you try to articulate, where's this going? What's going on? So the old man that's next door with the green garbage can's got a camera. He's filming him, right? And as he goes, "Hey, Truman, he won't hurt you. It's you, Truman. He's not going to hurt you." Well, Pluto the dog is observing and watching Mr. Truman, okay? So Adam, before I move on, is there anything you'd like to say? Because I don't want to go too long here. I want you to engage with me. I don't want to overstep. I'm so thankful you're coming on tonight. So please give me your input on this.
Now what
Pluto the
you're
dog.
about to get into here with the dog is really something that is going to be mind-boggling. The connection with just like thinking about what the dog is doing, and also we're going back to some of your guys' other decodes and stuff. I think is going to be pretty mind-blowing.
Absolutely. So Pluto, we hear the stories of Mickey Mouse and Pluto, all the time, right? It's Mickey Mouse is like iconic thing to have his dog Pluto with him. And when the flat Earth stuff started coming out years ago, and then people started getting into the biblical cosmology and get away from the heliocentric. I remember they used to take the Pluto in the sky and change it, with their best Photoshop they could possibly do back then, and have Pluto there, make poke fun at it, so to speak. So here's where it gets crazy. So you remember Einstein? Remember Einstein from Back to the Future, and Doc and Marty at the JCPenney parking lot? They got the DeLorean going, and Doc is doing his experiments, right? He's got the watch, the stopwatch on his neck. Well, Einstein here is a dog too, right? So we have these two dogs, and you're thinking, well, Brian, what's the connection? So remember, the dogs are watching, okay? So, this is back to the scene where Pluto is, up on top trying to, just, play with Truman, right? He's like actually trying to get his attention. Well, you see the ring? The significance of this ring, we're going to talk about it here after a while, but I will just throw this out here. It's a camera. So mind you, Truman has it 24/7, 7 days a week. It's always on him, and it's black. It's like a black diamond. It's really bizarre, but obviously cameras have a black lens. I get it. But just stay with that thought. So we continue on. All of a sudden, he's like, oh, ah. Truman's in, he's, here we go. Everything's good. Pluto's watching you. Hey,
Mhm.
hey, Truman, how you doing? Peaceful, getting to know your neighbors. Everybody's jolly, joyful. And all of a sudden, this object falls from the sky and hits the asphalt, hits the concrete, and it breaks and shatters. Right. So it breaks all over the ground. And Truman's alarmed. He goes over. He's like, what in the world? He goes over. But I want to point this out. So David Carrico was well known for knowing all about the Masonry, the Masonic Lodge, and he does books and everything exposing the Masons, the Masonic, all this stuff. I said Masonic, forgive me, but the Masons and all the notorious evil things that they've done throughout time, right? So you see these two pillars, and obviously they got cameras on all four corners.
Mhm.
Well, Adam, when I seen that, he looks down and the way the camera imagery it comes in and it's that focal point, right? So it's at the angle, the pillars, the 101. You're talking about the pillars. When you get into the Masonic Lodge, you have all these different applications. So Truman is literally going to be, is he going through initiation right now? Okay, so he doesn't even know it. Okay, so there's all these different things going on. There's these accidents happening. The 20-year-old studio equipment's falling from the sky, and here's where the most intense insanity comes from it right here. So, Back to the Future. We talked about Back to the Future on our Decode. So we have two pillars on the Back to the Future 3, and there's a screen, but you have the two mountains, the two pillars, right? And Marty's gonna go through this so-called portal once he goes 80 miles an hour. And I just thought it was interesting that there's a significance with the two pillars. So moving on, when you have the two pillars, Truman takes it and looks at it, and he said Sirius, and it literally says Sirius 9, and it says Canis Major. Okay, and I'll show you the part. It's a little blurry because I tried to grab as much as I could from the film, but Sirius 9 Canis Major. Well, he looks up in dismay and he's observing, as you can see here for this, just for the illustration purposes. So he's looking up in dismay and he's like, what in the world's going on? He's starting to wake up. He's starting to see things diminish around him, and he's starting to articulate, because guess what? He's getting ready to turn 30. I thought it was interesting that the number, the numeral, the 30 significance, because I've
Mhm.
seen movies, Adam, talking about like 30 being the prime state, right? So it's
Mhm.
interesting, you hear about people, Logan's Run, these dystopian future, their movies, TV shows, etc. from the 80s, and they have these significances where they, including the 30th birthday, and it's so strange that they're putting emphasis on his birthday. Here, we'll discuss that in a minute. So, but real quick, what do you think about this, Adam? Because it's so telling. Because I'm getting ready to show and pull this all together. What the serious, this let's just say flying object, this studio lamp. What do you think about this, and how telling it is when you really just think about a reality and think about how many things have been fabricated on, literally, and there's no figurative. It's fact that we have a bunch of stuff like this today that has been manipulated so much that we've just gotten so accustomed to it and used to it. We just go along with the plan. So, what do you think about Truman here? What he's doing when he's waking up to he's in the reality that's been monitored?
I think that it's interesting when you're talking about the ring and everything. And this was 1998, right? And now, like, you think about smartwatches, like everything has now been smartified, which I would argue is actually going the opposite of smart. Because like, and everything has a camera on it now. Like a lot of us carry phones all the time. So now we're it's almost like that side of this show or this movie has been like a predictive programming thing. And then you'd think like, because it makes you think like, oh man, like, could you imagine like having all those cameras all the time? Like you have no privacy, this and that. But then when you really step back and look at our present day, we've kind of like done that to ourselves. Like it's like, oh, new flashy tech, new flashy this and that. And then lo and behold, a lot of it ends up being like surveillance equipment, really. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge now that like, as you have a conversation around your phone, like you'll get ads pop up with pertaining to whatever you just talked about. It's really crazy how many similarities there are, and almost like I said, I keep saying it, but predictive programming from back then to the reality that we live in now.
I agree, Adam, 100%. I mean, we're living in bizarro world. It's so just to add to that, you remember me talking to you off air about a certain program that they brought up in the UFO narrative, and they call it the Immaculate, and it starts with a C, and it's going to be something we're going to be talking about when you look at the luminaries. Okay, so it starts with a C. Watch what I say. Okay, so the Immaculate, they're claiming, brother Adam, that they have the ability and the technology to like go back 10 generations and be able to map it out on an ancestral DNA, the whole ball of wax, man, quantified. That's what their claims are, especially with this quantum computers, et cetera, coming into play. It's going to get real testy here soon. So that's what they're claiming. That's what they're claiming. There's all kinds of different applications. I can't verify that, but that's what their claims are. So it's insane, 100%. So Truman's all in dismay about his experience with the Sirius Nine, the Canis Major. So when we seen Pluto earlier, Pluto the dog, you remember? He's the greater dog, the Canis Major constellation. He's the AKA the greater dog. Like we talked about on the Back to the Future when, we had Einstein, he's the greater dog in the series. There's a watcher. So this dog, Pluto, is a watcher for Truman. Can't make this stuff up. So it's just, he's AKA the greater dog. So you have this constellations concept, these, let's just say Ephesians 6, which we're going to be talking about later on, and these applications that are, I hate to use this term, but as above, so below, and there's so much correlation. But it gets even more bizarre with this whole connection. So you have this Canis a minor constellation. We're going to be talking about the little dog here after a while, but just keep in mind the Pluto was the greater dog in this film.
Yeah,
So
and if I can
go ahead.
mention something too,
Go ahead.
that like it might seem like, oh, it's kind of like a stretch, or like, what, okay, so there's a dog. Like there's dogs in a lot of movies, and actually that's really true. There are dogs in a lot of movies, but there's the significance can't shouldn't be just glanced over, because like as you had on your other decodes, um talking about, like, if you look at in the Terminator, um there's a dog in there as well, as you were talking about. And John Connor, if you look at Connor, the meaning of Connor, um it has to do with, it's an of Irish origin, meaning lover of hounds. So these things are really um, chosen for a very specific reason, to tell an esoteric story when you're watching these movies. So it's pretty crazy.
And they use humanity as chess pieces, Adam. I mean, seriously, they know this hidden truth. It's occultic. It's hidden, right? It's not. It's nothing to do with the. It's to do with the dark side. It's not to do with the light. It's not to do with
Mhm.
Christ the King or anything. It's the totally opposite. It's inverted, and we're going to be talking about that here in a little bit more on this, with this whole connection between the time travel narrative with 88 miles an hour with the Back to the Future in these constellations. So it's going to get really weird here in a second. So Truman, this is a picture screenshot of the way the camera was focusing in on Truman, but then you had the satellite, or the so-called Sirius lamp on the ground. So I want to bring everything to everybody's attention. This one got me. I've never noticed this before until just the other day, and I had to put it in this presentation. So Jim Carrey, Mr. Truman, there sitting down and looking at it and dismayed. He's looking around, observing the firmament, and he wants to know what's going on. Like he's completely. He's like, why is there nobody out here? If you notice, there's no other occupants. There's nobody outside. There's nobody walking around, because it's all controlled, right? So if you focus on these trees back here, so remember, here's the lamp, the Sirius lamp. If you focus on these trees back here, well, if you remember what I said a minute ago with the 9 Canis Major Sirius, number 9. But then if you go back here, I can assure you there's 11 palm trees, okay? And I've got a zoom in picture here to show everybody, but there is literally 11 palm trees. So Truman, if you really want to look at it and really dissect this and get into the actual meat of this presentation and look at this, the way it's presented here with the sidewalk and this illustration, the way it's the focal point of Truman, he's going through this initiation ritual. He's going through the walk of enlightenment. I promise you, because I'll show you here in a little bit, and I hate to even say it, but this is what the stuff is. When we're exposing things, it's proclaiming he's being enlightened. Okay, he's getting to know knowledge that are fallen from heaven. It's insane. Fallen angel knowledge, right? He didn't know there was such thing as a Sirius lamp. He's just going around getting his Ford Taurus and doing all of he's done all of his life at this controlled dome. So we have this 911. Let me zoom in here. Well, the slide's messed up. Hang on a second. So you have these 2 stopwatches, right? We've got 119. We'll get to that here in a second. This is a slide I wanted to show. So here's the same slide. I just zoomed in. So you have 11 palm trees. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 palm trees. So why in the world is there how's this even possible, Adam? That the synchronizing of it and everything, it doesn't ride well with me. This has to be deliberately done. There's no other way around it. There's no other way around it. This was not deliberately done. So I said on the slide here 9/11 question mark, right? Because you have your 9/11. And if you remember back on when we talked about Marty McFly and Doc going to the JCPenney's mall whenever he's doing his test, he had Einstein with a stopwatch that was in synchronization with his, right? 119, right? Inversion, 9/11, right? It's just right here in your face. You can't make this stuff up. So we have the 9 for Sirius, Canis Major. We have the 11 palm trees right there in that still screenshot of that focal point on Truman. How in the world does this even happen? And so when you go to the Twin Towers, like I said earlier, and then, I was talking about 9/11, when you talk about the Twin Pines, the mall, the Back to the Future narrative, and he sees Doc over there, and he's in the parking lot getting ready to, let's just say, energize the flux capacitor. Well, there you go. You got your 116. It's still inverted. It's still 19. It's still 9/11. So you have these connections that are just so profound to me. And why in the world, and we're going to show some more slides here in a minute showing more about 9/11 and how these connections of these streets and all these movies have the correlation with the dogs, correlation with the streets. And Adam, what's your take on this before we move on?
One thing to note on like movies, games, all these kinds of things, everything, especially movies, everything that you see on screen is there like pretty deliberately. Like you have to, especially like for a film, you have this idea of making every frame in the film like a painting. Like you want to consider carefully everything that you have on there. So it's not something that just like, oh, that's a weird coincidence. There's always a reason that something is there on screen, down to like signage that you'd have in the background, like if there were posters behind me or anything like that, and it was like a film set. Most of the time, there's people that are designing specifically just those posters. Like every single thing in the background is typically very well thought through.
Yeah, and we've talked about this on behind closed doors with these tarot cards, and there's a spirit behind it, folks. And me and Adam agree. It's a spiritual application behind it, and it's pretty absurd. It's pretty insane. So, 9/11 references. Let's continue on here and go to this other slide past the palm trees and past the Twin Pines Mall and Back to the Future. And I just wanted to show you guys the 9/11 part where it's upside down. And this is the other part. When you get into the Back to the Future at the beginning of it's the ending of the program, the beginning of the second one. But there's whenever Doc sends Marty back in time, right, back to 1985. This is in 1955. As you can see on the screen here, and I'll zoom in. As you can see on the screen, you have a 9 Western Audio, and then you have you have the cinemas in the background, the bank, I think, and literally the lightning that struck the clock tower and lit the fire and all that good stuff, and then obviously arced the DeLorean to have enough, to enhance the flux capacitor to go back to 1985. So you have a 9/11. Marty went on his enlightenment trip, right? He had future tech. Think about it. He had knowledge, and somehow he went off into oblivion. And once again, fallen angel knowledge. And I think it's interesting. I want everybody to focus on the arrow. Just remember the arrow. Okay, we're going to talk more about the arrow here in a little bit. But this iconic scene with the Back to the Future narrative is pretty compelling to me because you have that 9/11 again. So, insane. And I just wanted to show that at 9/11 at the bottom. And then I went back and looked just to reference because we have the 9 that's on this Sirius Canis lamp, major, right? It has number 9 on it. This is the 9 that's destroyed, right? And then you have the 11 palm trees up the street. It's pretty phenomenal. So here's where it gets pretty intriguing. So after all this chaos, Trump, excuse me, forgive me, everybody. Truman, that's a hot topic right now. Yeah, I know. I messed up there, Brother Adam. But yeah, Trump is big in the news right now, and that's why it was on my mind. So Truman is driving down the road in a Ford Taurus, right? And he's going to go to his work of employment, his occupation. So he's going down the road, and he's listening to a radio, okay? So has anybody ever seen and actually looked and dug into the radio? Because there's a camera on the dash, and it says, because it's upside, it's inverted, right? It's mirrored, and it says 2975. Well, the slide here is kind of cut off, but it's 2 at the top here. Let me move that over just a little bit for everybody can see it. So 2, and then I just did a bunch of dots there. So I took 2 times 975. I just took 2 times 975 on the radio station because it's a mirror, and I said, well, it's very significant. Well, this is what I came up with. So I times on the mathematics and numerology. I said we was going to go down a rabbit hole today. So the mathematically part of it, 2 times 975 equals 1950. I thought it was very peculiar. I thought, man, this is the most compelling deep dive I've took on a decoding because it's going to tie in a lot of these other movies. How does this happen? How is this in a 1998 film? So we're going to be talking about radio frequencies and different applications because there's a lot of this, what we're going to be talking about throughout the whole show that traumatizes Truman. Frequency context, okay? So if we're looking at like 975 hertz, and then we look at the timesing and everything and have 1950 hertz, a higher pitch audible frequency near B6 in music, suggesting doubled energy or intensity. So here he is driving down the road in his Ford Taurus, and there's like the radio station going on. Ask him how he's doing, how you been. He's responding because the news anchor can hear him. And he's just oblivious. All these years went on, and he's getting, let's just say the news anchor says, sit back. The radio guy says, sit back and enjoy some, after all the trauma of, the satellite so-called falling in the sky, sit back and relax, enjoy some music on, and all this, old school music comes on. It's contemporary, all these different sounds, right? And it's so he's getting all into a mood and getting all like, hey, I'm in a calm state now. And then he's going to, there's just a double slide, forgive me. And I wanted to bring this verse up because when he goes to his occupation, he goes to his place of employment. And when I heard the frequencies and everything and how it manipulates his mind, because these people are all involved in it. All these people are involved, and they all work for the greater company, right? Or whoever's paying the affiliate marketing, because there's affiliate marketing and everything in this program, in this movie. And Truman is oblivious, but in all reasonable concept and just thinking about it in a reasonable mind, the poor guy's in torment. So I thought about the verse, Ephesians 2:2, where in the time past ye walk according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the prince of the power of the air. And we know who that is. The spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. And I thought about, if this really did happen in real life, okay, how sick and demented. But I was talking the other night to Brother David, and I could not find it. I could not find it, folks. I looked everywhere. I looked all over the internet. And me and Adam talked about off air, and we kind of come to the conclusion that we know about it, but we couldn't find the hard truth about it. Apparently in the 1970s in real life, underneath the dome, right? A little fun humor. there was an experiment or something, a social experiment that was done back in the 1970s. I can't remember what country it was, what state it was, but I know it was supposedly done here in the Earth. And all these people, it was similar to the Truman Show. Well, they revoked. They couldn't do it anymore because the man with all the tentacles with the Pinocchio strings, well, they had to get rid of it. Okay, so I heard that. Comment in the description box. Hit me up in the chat. Let me know what you guys think about that, because if you can find any information, I can't remember the title of the name of the man. So let me know if you all find that in comment below. Please do. That'd really help me out. So this Ephesians 2:2, Brother Adam, what do you think about it? Because the powers of the air, the prince of the power of the air is doing all this manipulation throughout time. And what best way of doing it, especially with our new technology, Brother Adam? What do you think?
It's definitely has an application to that we could think of having, because there's so many videos and stuff you could see what frequency can do to like shape things and change things. And there's several writings and people like Anton Mesmer, who did so many things with trying to influence people's thinking with frequency and other I guess you'd call it like scientific means. But also I can't remember if it was in that particular shot where he was in the car, but what I noticed that was so interesting was that the radio voice, the person on the radio, like who would be the DJ, I guess, he was saying like, "Oh, strange incident happened today. Apparently, a plane was flying by and lost some of its cargo," or something like that. So he was, it was obviously made up to try and give Truman a sense of like, oh, okay, that makes sense. A sense of closure on this really bizarre thing that he just went through and witnessed. And it's funny thinking about it, like, as an as in the audience watching the show, you think of it and it's like, oh my gosh, like it's so funny, like it's so clearly, they're just trying to cover up their tracks. But that happens today. That happens so often. There's things that happen that if you dig down, um, you can see situations going around that either they can't be explained, or the news, excuse me, the news or a mainstream media source will uh, fabricate some lie to try and explain things away. So it's kind of I thought that was really fascinating that even in that, like, and that could be just in the back of Truman's mind as he's like, driving along. But I thought that was funny. So, but that still applies to this because it's like um, the Prince of the Power of the Air, something auditory, something that you're hearing that's trying to calm you down and make you not think, I guess.
It's called gaslighting on the highest order.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
well, no, I mean that really is it. I mean, just to expand on what you're talking about, Brother Adam, we have us a plane crashing from the UAP, the UFO, then all of a sudden they'll turn around and say we don't know nothing, and then all of a sudden we deployed the fighter jets, we do have the rockets. We had to deploy them over a Hobby Lobby balloon. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. I can't let that go. We got Hobby Lobby balloons
Yeah.
in the sky, and we got to shoot a $400,000 rocket. It's going to pop and pop and pop some more and disintegrate into billions of pieces. But we sure got her. You see what I'm saying? Then everybody's like, "Oh, everything's peaceful. Everything's back to normal." And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about here more and more. The power, the prince, the power of the air, and how much it is easy to defile and beguile the people. Mankind is so easy subjected to things that it just baffles my mind, and that's why we do these programs, these exposing, these decoding, right? So it's just we're gonna get more into it because it just gets more deeper and deeper as the rabbit hole goes here on the Truman Show Decoded. So next slide. So if you see me earlier speak about, I said 1950, and I came up with that, especially with the mathematics of this radio. And yes, I know that it sounds a little bit reaching, but I'm going to show you something a little bit why I come to the conclusion why to incorporate so much of the Back to the Future to this program. And you'll see. So I thought it was interesting in 1950 was that with those arrangement of numbers, that radio station. Well, if you go back and listen to our Back to the Future Decode, we talk about the Gray Sports Almanac, and everybody knows this iconic set up here whenever Marty wants to go and use it. You know, and old Biff, he uses it to bet on sports games and everything and become this rich folk, right? This rich guy. And so this sports almanac, when you look at it and just kind of dive in, grays, hello, gray alien, you know, it kind of gives you that eerie vibe that there's some kind of predictive programming or some conscientious, I guess the subconscious picked something up of premeditating on something or has some type of, let's just say, help designing and producing some of the, let's just say, inserts for this film. I can only say they must have some kind of preconceived knowledge of some shape or form. So there you go. You got the Gray's Almanac, and it's 1950 to 2000. Mind you, this film came out in 1998. And it's just really interesting to me. So we're going to get more into it about the Back to the Future as we go along, so stay tuned to that. So here's one that really got me, Brother Adam. So they go in, Trump's doing his thing again, he's all giddy, he's all happy, and everybody's just putting a big show on, right? He's going down through there, and this man, they show this focal point here with the camera, and we have this guy sitting here, this newspaper gentleman that's giving out magazines, etc., working at this booth, okay? It's called the Dog Fancy Magazine. So, look, there's Pluto. I'll zoom in. It's a little dark on the screen here. But look, there's Pluto again. There's good old Pluto on the magazine, on the Dog Fancy Magazine. Imagine that. I guess he's watching and observing, even though on the, let's just say, the 2D effect, the paper mache is what one of my family members would say. So he's literally on a picture, and he's watching. Okay? I know it sounds bizarre. I know it sounds a little bit going down into the tinfoil hat days conspiracy motive, but I tell you what, we're gonna take a deep dive here. So we have the Dog Fancy. There's the Pluto watching again, but as it goes on, Truman shows up, and I kid you not, guys, I went back and tried to reference it. I went back at this one scene for probably 20 or 30 times, and I said to myself, did Truman call the newsstand guy Arrow? And I kept thinking, I was like, why does he keep saying that? He goes, Arrow, can I get a newspaper? Arrow, can I get a newspaper? And I said, really? And then I think about the Arrow. I think about Nimrod. I think about the mighty men of old, that insignia. And, if you go back and looked at remember the Back to the Future with the 911 and it said Western Audio and it had the Arrow with the neon light? Isn't that kind of interesting? So here we go. We have this newspaper guy sitting here giving out these Dog Fancy magazines, which is kind of weird. Anyways, so Truman backs up. He looks over for just a few seconds, and I could not believe it because I would have missed it. I went back several times, and I said, I would have missed that it's just for a millisecond. He stands and takes a step back, and he stares at this woman. And there's a lot of adultery. We're going to be looking at we're going to be looking at stuff that's just sick, okay? This adultery stuff is just disgusting. So Truman's got this eye, and if you look back in all these films, don't ever look at the woman in red, right? That's what the Matrix said with Neo in it. Don't look at the woman in the red. But as you can see at the top, it says, look at the stand. I put the titles of the magazine, cook, garden, home. And I was thinking to myself, are they portraying something here in some kind of symbolic ideology to say this great creator, Christoph, placed a man in a fabricated, simulated, artificial dome, literally, born from the mother's womb inside the dome, and he's a television phenomenon. He's a celebrity of all time, according to this movie. So I started looking, cook, garden, home, right? I started thinking about the biblical narrative, and then the woman in red we're going to get to in a little bit, and how interesting. When he looks and he observes, Truman looks over for a moment, looks to his right, and I was thinking west side, east side, right? So he looks on the east side of this booth. East side, the east, from the east, talking about the biblical narrative, right? And the east side of the newsstand, and he stares, he observes, and it's just for a millisecond, this woman in red's there, and then all these magazines in the back. Yes, I know they had to have filler for the film, but it's just interesting that the focal point, once again, for a millisecond shows this. And I just thought that was strange. So whoever is orchestrating this film, they know what they're doing, because if you go back and edit something over and over and over again, you know what you splice out. So I thought about this verse, and Genesis 2:18, Genesis 2:8, and the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. Genesis 2:9. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to his sight, and good for food, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Well, I just thought about this on a metaphor side, I guess, or that kind of concept when I'm articulating the scene. What if it's a newsstand? News, you can get good news, you can get bad news, right? You can get magazines that actually have stuff that's pretty good for humanity. You can actually learn something, but there's a lot of garbage too. So I started thinking, is this a setup here in the scene, talking literally like you can get knowledge, good knowledge, bad knowledge, but you just come to me, right? And then there's the woman in red. I thought of Lilith. I thought of let's just say the puppet master, Mr. Arrow, the gentleman in the newspaper stand, east to west. You know what I'm saying, Brother Adam? What do you say about this? Because I think there's a huge connection here. It's just kind of bizarre. What do you think?
Yeah, and I was actually just looking at the slide that you have for when you're looking behind Mr. Arrow in the newsstand. That it also the titles of the magazines in there are significant too. You have Modern Dad, Child, 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 obviously Dog Fancy, and then this one really tripped me out. This says Car Sound Fall Preview. Like that's pretty crazy to think about. Like, because of what happened, obviously
Mm-hmm.
the light fell, and then he's in the car listening, and they're covering up the story of that. But yeah, that's a really cool catch, because seeing this garden stuff, like all this stuff is clearly trying to tap into a biblical uh a biblical perversion, but it's trying to tap into there too. So that I think that's a really cool catch that you found.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, it gives you all this knowledge. This newsstand has this. It can give you
Hmm.
good knowledge or bad knowledge. So he could,
Hmm.
could he be the little old man there be betrayed as the subtle serpent? I mean, he's older. You know what I mean? Like they'd be thinking like him as of let's just say another angelic, because he's always sitting there. He's always observing. It's strange. Take it for
Hmm.
what it is. We're gonna be talking about it here in a little bit more too after a while, but it's down. Like I said, get your tinfoil hats out and get your cup of coffee, because we're going to go down some more deep paths here. So, not only do we have that, the woman in red, the connection with the Garden of Eden, just speaking upon it, in the way it's, presented here. Well, I said, but wait, did you see the woman in red? And I thought about it. Morpheus, right? The Matrix. I mentioned that earlier, the woman in the red, and I remember that film. And he tells Neo, if you remember, that's why I put so much emphasis on the glasses. There's twins there. We're going to be talking about twins here after a while, but Neo on whenever Morpheus is talking to Neo, there's dualism. There's the two twins in both lenses. But he said, "Do not follow the woman in red." So it's interesting that the Truman Show has those correlations and those comparisons and similarities to me. It's insane. So this one is pretty just this is where it gets really intense. Okay, so we looking at this ad here. There's all kinds of ads. So we have this Kaiser chicken, right? So it says free range Kaiser chicken, and Truman's getting ready to walk by, and there's always affiliated marketing, people trying to do promotions. It's basically a walking billboard, and they're getting pocket full of money, and literally off of somebody. Does that remind you of anything? Anything out there in our modern day 2025? When you look at the affiliated marketing and all the data that they have on us, and they can sell it, it's the same narrative, but old Truman just had his cameras in his face, and they just built a whole dome for him. Man, they built a whole amusement park for Mr. Truman. That's the only difference. But how sick that is that's what they're doing today with technology. Just saying. Gotta watch what I say. So this Kaiser chicken. So we get into Kaiser chicken. I thought this is really interesting when you look into, we've talked about a lot of different things here on FOJC, and me and David's done some JFK programs and done quite a few things when it talks about, the Germany and all that. So Kaiser is a German word meaning emperor. It was historically used as a title for rulers of the Holy Roman Empire. The German Empire, and it goes from 1871 to 1918, and the Australian Empire, the term comes from the Latin Caesar. which is the title used by Roman emperors. In a broader sense, Kaiser can also evoke ideas of authority or leadership. So here's where it gets interesting. So we have this tie here, and all of a sudden, Truman's sitting there. He pulls up and he sees these two men, and he's got twins. There's two older men. Hey, Truman, how you doing? And he's like, and there's like, I think there's proposing something because I think what his job is, his occupation. They always go through Truman for affiliated marketing for him to sign everything. It's pretty sick and demented. So they're like, hey, you got that idea? Blah blah. And then Truman goes, hey, and he's like, let me skip that slide, excuse me. And he goes, hey, and he said, I'll give you this doppelganger discount. Doppelganger discount is what he said. And he says German word, if you go to German words, doppel meaning double and gainer meaning goer. So you have doppelgangers. So here's that German connection, just in these few little clips of scenes during this Truman Show. And I wanted to bring up, again, I bring this up so many different times in our programs and when we did our Back to the Future Decoded. There's a twin program in the NASA. And me and David have talked about this. John Powers has talked about this. Not NASA with the you got the Project Paperclip, you got all these different things with Nazi Germany, all these different applications that led to this, let's just say this corporation or facility here, let's just say that. They have a twin program. They actually do have a twin program. So why is that even there, right? So then there are all these connections, doppelgangers. In 1998, folks, I mean, heck, I remember 1995, I didn't even know what doppelgangers was back then, right? So 1998, I mean. And so it's just interesting how this all is coming around. And then you have, the connections with JFK. You got Argentina with Hitler, the twins in the different villages. There's like dominantly twins everywhere. It's just insane to me. And there's this connection with NASA. It's just wild to me with the twins. So he's talking about doppelgangers. And I just think that's very strange because when he turns around the focal point of this slide here, this screenshot, there's two, literally, phallics. There's two of these. There's two pillars. Mm-hmm. No joke, once again. Well, these two pillars, he's walking down the sidewalk. And when he walks down the sidewalk, there's Sea Haven. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. That's the place of his employment. So he's getting inundated with these two twin guys. They're asking him for a business proposition. And he's getting inundated, and he doesn't even know what he's doing. He just thinks that it's just cool, and, whatever his job title is, right? And it's just interesting that he has this, he's got his newspaper, he's going to go to work, turns around, doppelganger, and you got the twinning of the pillars, and you're going to walk the walk of going to your, let's just say, place of employment. And I want to show you, everybody, with the Sea Haven, I thought about sun worship, sun god worship. When he gets to the front, if you look up there on the arch, it looks like a sun on a base, and it's sun rays, and it's a sun logo to me. What do you say, Brother Adam? Because what do you think about Truman and this twins, this doppelgangers, and this sun god worship? And that's where he has to go to make his money. I know that this place is called Sea Haven. I get it. But this particular place of employment, what do you think about it, Brother Adam?
Yeah, I was looking at in the previous slide too, with when you have the pillars and then the walkway. They have several of those Masonic drawings that basically depict this, where you have like the twin pillars that you have to go through, and then the opening of his place of work is like a classic Masonic architecture building as well. And it's just kind of it's interesting to think about that, like I mean, like, this is the world that we live in, and these institutions have so much influence and control over everything that you're going to have a hard time to avoid having to work in something that uh, these Masonic institutions have had some hand in. It's kind of interesting thinking about that, and also it's a revolving door that you enter through. Like, it's just like it'll turn you in and spit you out. You keep on going. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting too, Adam, that they watch him. They'll watch him and make sure he doesn't get hurt. And they let him go through the door first, or even they'll like be polite. It's kind of strange because they don't want the investment to get injured. You know what I mean?
Yes,
they don't want all
yeah.
their billions to fall short. So, he gets back into his office. He sits in his little cubicle out there, up there in that good old Sea Haven Sun Worship Tower. And I thought to myself, whenever he's sitting in this slot in this steel frame here, and he's contemplating in his mind and thinking about this, let's just say, encounter with this woman that he's literally supposedly mystery woman he's in love with. Okay, but guess what, Adam? He's married. So there's the problem. So here's the problem. So he calls this operator for help with the Fiji islands, right? He's going to Fiji, right? This
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you here later we're going to be talking about why he keeps associating this mystery woman with Fiji islands. So he's obsessed. He can't get any. He's just all down. Here once again we have this trauma. Truman's in a trauma state. He's down. Here we go. The cameras are on him, right? He's ripping the magazine. He got a magazine off that or off that newsstand from that individual, right? And he even lied. He said it's for my wife. So then you have lies in here. Then you have, it's a distaste a little bit. It doesn't taste good. You feel me? It's not a good setup if you was a Christian, let's say that, and you was uh wanting to watch this for entertainment. But I tell you, brother Adam, I had a hard time watching it again. I had a hard time watching it for the new pair of eyes I have. And so he's all down the slumps and all down and out. And his all of a sudden, this coworker, uh, oh, real quick, I'm going to throw this in here real quick before I move on. I almost got ahead of myself because the slide skipped. But if you check out his desk, and we're going to be talking about his desk, I thought it was very strange. You have these coils, and I know they're pen and pencil holders. I get it. I think there's like a golf ball there, but you have these. Let's just once again pillars. You have the same. It almost looks Masonic. It's got a little Masonic flavor to it, right? But I want to zoom in here and show everybody. We have 11, right? You got one pillar, two pillars, right? But right here in this box of dominoes, it literally is. There's 7 here. These two are 7, and then just one is 7. So you have 5 and 2 is 7 for these two, and then this other little domino that has all of them on it, it's literally got 7. So do the math, Adam. So 1, 1, and if you go again down the rabbit hole, 11, and then 77. So 77 plus 11, guess what that equals, Brother Adam? It equals 88. And I was like, wow, there's always this, I've done many shows on this. There's always this correlation and similarities through all these films and different programming. It's like, okay, so Truman Show has nothing to do with time travel whatsoever. But there's so many significances that are tied into from a 1985 film, from the difference between a 1998 film, literally almost 15 years difference, literally almost 13, I think. But anyways, you have this 88 on his desk. And what do you say about that, Adam? Because it just blew my mind, because I was thinking it's pretty simple, it's pretty subtle, it's just in your face. But as soon as this screen transitions, there's an employee, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But Adam, what do you say about this? Because you can't make this stuff up. 88 miles an hour, 88, the flux capacitor, the Ouroboros time, you can get into all the different physics and all that different stuff when it comes to that. But the serpent eating the tail, all that good stuff. But 88, what got me again, brother Adam? It got me again. It did.
Yeah, that was I was just talking to you before we went live, how I was telling you, like, man, some of the numbers and stuff that you could pull in, and you find, like, that blows my mind, because I'm definitely not familiar with that side of things. So getting your insight on it is, it's pretty cool. And yeah, I was trying to sit here and figure out, like, okay, what is the numbers of the dominoes meaning? And then, so yeah, then here you go. You're starting to talk about it. But also, um looking at, yeah, the other stuff on his desk, and seeing his name there made me think a bit about, so Truman, right? So True Man
Mm-hmm.
Burbank. And
Mm-hmm.
Burbank, as far as I could tell, I'd have to do probably some more digging on it, but as far as I could tell, for sure that it's a city in California that's known for Hollywood production. So that you have that whole thing of, like, again, going back to, like, uh an artificial world being portrayed, right? So Burbank, California, being known for filmmaking. But also, Burbank seems to be the name of a prolific horticulturist who made many varieties of plants and vegetables and stuff. So again, thinking to your connection to like the Garden of Eden and like who is Truman supposed to be? Is he supposed to be like some kind of a spin on Adam in the garden? And then you think like True Man, Burbank's association with like gardening and horticulture. It's
Mhm.
kind of interesting.
And I agree because well, here in a little bit, it's going to be pretty apparent that there's even uh, they're trying to symbolize Jesus Christ on here, and they use Truman as that he's like the Christ, and we'll get to that.
Mm,
It's almost like he's Adam now, and he goes to this ascension thing. It's pretty sick and
right.
demented, folks. It's
Yeah, it is.
it's sick and
Yeah.
demented. Okay, it's not that we're
Yeah.
me and Adam do not agree with any of the stuff here. We're not sitting there
Hmm.
dabbling in it. We're just explaining it and referencing it.
Trying
And
to expose it.
yes, absolutely. Well, moving on from the 88. So 88 miles an hour. Shameless plug here. Go check out Back to the Future Decoded if you get an opportunity. You won't regret it. It's here on FOJC Underground Church. 88 miles an hour. You know, Truman is getting traumatized because he cannot, the operator, once again, he's on the phone, he's using a frequency, and there's trauma. He's trying to find this mystery woman, and he's married. So you understand how sick, if anybody has any moral code at all in this reality, that is totally against what God wants from man. Okay, and it's we're going to talk about that here in a little bit about marriage and the biblical stance on it. And but yeah, so literally right after that 88, you know, the 11 and the 77 there, the dominoes, Adam, and then he turns around and there's this guy. He's like, hey Truman, hey Truman, and he's like, look at this magazine, look at this
Hmm.
newspaper, look at our ad, and it says the best place on earth, Sea Haven, voted Planet's top town, right? Well, right after a millisecond, he's like, he throws up them sixes. He throws up them
Hmm.
sixes. You can't make it up, and there it is. Boom.
Hmm.
He's throwing that 6-6 up, and he's just making
Hmm.
it happen. He's smiling about it, right? He's smiling back at Jim Carrey, and it was pretty interesting that I was able to capture it. And so he's like, "Hey Truman, hey," and he's like being a pest because he doesn't want him talking to the operator about Fiji. He's
Hmm.
distracting, so he's getting pulled back and forth. MK Ultra on steroids, right?
Hmm.
Well, all of a sudden, here comes this other employee trying to divert Truman, trying to traumatize him again with his employee status. He's like, "Hey, Truman, if you don't take this, man, if you don't take this, they're going to have cutbacks. You know,
Hmm.
we're getting ready. They're getting ready to cut backs in the office, man. You're going to lose your job. You don't want that, do you, Truman?" He's like, "Sit back, relax, go out there." And here's what they did. He knew that something he was playing on the mind strings, right? He
Hmm.
literally this is how people manipulate people, and it's just sad. It's sad. It's sad. So he pulls on this mind strings of this Truman, asking him, saying, "Hey, go get some fresh air, or go out there on the water, right?" Because we'll talk about that here in a little bit. What happened to Truman when he was a kid. So there's traumatizing back and forth, and he tells him go to the pier. He tells him go get some fresh water, fresh air, all that good stuff. And he goes to this Harvard Island ferry terminal. Okay, he goes up to the clerk and he says, "Hey, I want a ticket." He said one way or a return. He goes, "What?" He's like, "Return, return." Well, here it is. There's a boat. All the actors are just sitting there waiting in anticipation. Hey, the Truman, is he going to do it? He's going to go across the line. Doesn't this make you think when you look at Project Mockingbird and all the different applications they presented to us as just harmless? Don't you think it's kind of interesting that they've done this to us in real life and used all the technology to manipulate our minds with frequency and signal? There's just a little bit of a plug-in of where I'm going to head to for after a while. But Truman goes here and he goes down. He's getting ready to get on the boat. Goes to the ticket booth, gets his ticket, and he freezes up. Okay, so
Hmm.
he's getting ready to do. There's like, "Hey, can I help you, sir?" And he starts having, vertigo, having all kinds of flashbacks. I mean, it's almost, it's, if this was real life, this would be disgusting. If this wasn't a movie and this actually happened, I couldn't. I don't even understand where the psychological thing is on a human stance. I think it's just disgusting. So he sits there and gets traumatized. He goes on about his business and he walks back and he's like, "I can't do it. I can't do it." And he takes his ticket back. So there he is traumatized. Well, all of a sudden he goes and
Hmm.
invites his buddy. He gets his buddy and he's like, "Hey, come on, pal, let's drink some alcohol together, right?" So they go back and forth and talking about, and Truman's like, "Hey, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna I want to do something different. I want to get out. I want to go to Fiji. I want to do something totally different in life, and I want to change it up with occupation, all that. He's like, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that, Truman? You have a desk job. I would kill for a desk job. You don't want to be a vending. You don't want to be filling vending machines up all day. So they're golfing on this bridge, right? That's where they go. Well, I want to point this out, and I want to focus on this license plate here on the Ford Ranger. And of course, it's red. Mind you, it's red. Whoa, watch out now. So they're playing golf. He's talking back and forth. And I thought to myself, when he said it's a killer, I'd kill for a job. Don't you all guys remember the 1999, I think, or 98, when it came out on Matrix and Neo? I think it was 1999. Neo literally had a desk job. He literally had a desk job, bro. You know what I'm saying, Adam? He had a desk job. So is there like rabbit trails again? You know, like, hey, you don't want a desk job, do you? You're confined. You know, I'm not saying anybody that has a desk job, there's anything wrong with that. But it's almost like they want to entrap Truman at any cost. Have you noticed that there's gaslighting on every angle?
Yes.
And so check out the license plate, right? So this license plate, I zoomed in here for everybody to see. And I thought this was because I looked at all the numbers. I looked at almost all the numerology on this movie. Excuse me. So checked out the license plate. So remember at the beginning of the program when we talked about radio frequencies and disruptions and Truman getting gaslit by the radio broadcaster? Well, look at this. Okay, so we have 689 HNR, and that's the license plate. So I took 689 and I just added them. I said 6 plus 8 plus 9 equals 23. Well, the HNR, if you do the numerology, it comes out to, 22. So here's what was so interesting about it. Let me pull this up. The slide is not being shown all the way. It's a little messed up. Forgive me, folks. I had a little... That's all right. Let me pull the slide up just a bit for everybody. Okay. So as you see here on the screen, 22 is a master number linked to stability and building something lasting, though it's often reduced further to a 2 plus 2 for practical energy like structure and discipline. And Brother Adam, when I seen this and I thought about it, I was like, this is insane. I mean, when you just look at that in general, and we're going to talk about the HNR, but when I looked at HNR, there's another significance with HNR. But just adding these two numbers, when you take the 23 and the 22, you get, and I'm going to talk about it here in a minute, but the HNR is literally it's harmonic to noise ratio. And I was trying to really take a deep dive here. It measures the balance between harmonic energy tied to specific frequencies and noise energy in the system. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot here on FOJC, and they do over at ACTV with ley lines. We've done a show just recently on Star Forts there not too long ago. We talk about these earth energies. And it's just interesting because we're going to really talk about this harmonic to noise ratio here after a while. But if you take the 23 and the 22 and you just add them together, okay, you get 45. And I thought this can't be this simple, can it? I was like, you know, and then people's probably like, Brian, where you headed with this? And I'm thinking, when I seen that 45 reference, I started going everywhere in my mind. I'm thinking, you know, 45, what's that significance of 45? You know, that number, what is it, right? Is it Michael Jordan? Michael Jordan took that number, right, in his New Jersey when he switched over and came out of the Boston when he had the White Sox and he went from MLB to back to professional basketball. It's not Michael Jordan. It's not number 45. And I was thinking about the president, right? Donald Trump, the 45th president, right? You know, in 2016, it was the first time he was in office, right? So I thought about Donald Trump and that correlation with the Back to the Future. I was like, okay, so we have all this harmonics and different applications, and there's so many significances. There's too many coincidences that there's not something here. And you have John Trump, you know, Donald Trump's uncle, had all this technology from Tesla, right? And does anybody remember Brother David just did a book review like a month or so ago? And go check out all the book reviews on FOJC. Brother David's going to be coming out with a lot more here soon. And big shout out to Brother David. I hope you're enjoying the program. The Baron Trump collection with Ingersoll Lockwood. So I thought about it. I was like, why is there this 100 and something plus year old book and all these, there's this intricate, like, so complexity of like it being Baron Trump, or, you know, the comparisons of Trump being the last president. There's so many different tie ins, time travel, you know, dark, you know what? There's this goo that has been, well, it's illustrated in this book. So I started thinking, I was like, you know, 45. Yes, I know he's the president of the United States now, 47th president, but I wanted to point out that tie-in with the Biff, Back to the Future, and, you know, it looks like Biff plays a role of similar to what Trump has done. It's very, very interesting, Adam. So this Baron Trump and this time travel narrative, what is it? I'm on the fence. I don't believe it. Me and Brother Davis talked about the different ways and applications that they could pull off something that it looks like, that it perceives as time travel, like it's almost a representation when you look at the halls of Amity and the Akashic records. So what if, Brother Adam, there's some kind of correlation tie in here with harmonics or some type of quantum field, something so strange and bizarre, and this harmonic, you know, this tie in with this Ford Ranger. How is this even possible? And what do you say about it, Brother Adam?
To be quite honest, I don't really, I wouldn't really know. I'm not entirely certain on the tie-in with this. What it does make me think of is, as you're saying, because they do play a lot with like frequency and stuff in this film, and it makes me think a lot about the surveillance of Truman, and also by the means by which they start manipulating all of the things around him, specifically like the weather. Like at the very end, um, Christoph, the creator guy, you know, he's instructing like send in the storms and all this other stuff. So that's kind of where my head was at when looking at these particular slides here and talking about like frequency and stuff as it's depicted here in the Truman Show.
Well,
But that's a pretty yeah, because I'd be interested to dig more into that too, though, like if there's any kind of Trump connection, and how, if at all, how like time travel plays out in it too.
that's exactly why I plugged it in. So, you know, Fiji, he goes and talks. So my point of this whole sequence of these slides is the Trump connection, the 45th, and then you talk about the license plate with the Ford Ranger, the red connection. But here's the thing, Adam, it's on a bridge. It's not completed bridge. He's having this conversation with his pal, and guess what? They're shooting golf balls, and the Ford, both Fords. I thought it was interesting that it's both Fords. It's 2 Fords. It's kind of interesting. On the back side of this, there's nothing. Like literally, it's not. It's incomplete because they want him to stay. It's on the screen here. They want him to stay there. It's a cage. It's a cage. But here's the correlation of bringing the Biff time travel, you know, it's speculation. I will say that for the record, speculation with the 45. I know I reached a little bit, but just to pull in the time travel concept in the Back to the Future, check this out. So we have a bridge. We have a Ford Ranger. We have a bridge in Back to the Future part 3. Doc sends Marty back, but he says, hey, if we take the DeLorean across the tracks, in 1985, the bridge will be completed. You see? So like there's that tie-in. So there's that weird occultic, let's just say they know what they're doing. And it's just or they're just a big fan. Let's just say the Truman Show folks was just a big fan of the Back to the Future nostalgia, and they just went ahead and incorporated every single aspect of it. I don't know. But as we move on, so you have that completion of the bridge, right? There he goes, and Marty goes down and, you know, does his thing. He gets back, and there's... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Okay, yeah, understanding that part too. It seems like there's something there. There's more there.
Yeah,
It seems like for sure. Yeah,
absolutely, Adam. So
I wouldn't know what it is, but there's something there.
Oh, 100%. So he has to go 88 miles an hour on that railroad track to break through this, let's just say, ramp onto this railroad track, and then he goes in the completion in 1985. But it's interesting. So I want to throw this out here. I didn't put this in the Decoded of Back to the Future, but I'm going to tonight. So Marty is coming down the bridge. Well, that's Truman there. Forgive me. Well, I got the wrong slides here. But anyways, I messed up. There's a slide missing. That's okay, folks. But anyways, as the Back to the Future, the DeLorean, he's going. When Marty's coming, it says Eastwood Raven, I think, or hey, it says Eastwood Raven, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's interesting. Let me check something out, brother Adam, and make sure I have that slide here. But when you're talking about this and thinking about it, it's just it's mind bending, really. I mean, it's mind bending. And I'm gonna try to see where that slide went. It must have disappeared. It sure did. But anyways, it doesn't. That's fine. So moving on, the I just missed a slide. It happens. So the completion, I wanted to pull in the Eastwood. I know it's meant to be Clint East, like the Clint Eastwood, kind of spin off because they called him Mr. Eastwood in Back to the Future Part 3. I get it.
Oh, right.
But it's interesting how it there. My point was is the Eastwood, like the east side, like he's coming down the track east. Like we was talking about earlier, east with Truman. There's that east connection. I just thought it was interesting to me. So moving on. So there's the bridge, and then you have this trauma from Truman. So Truman starts relapsing in his mind and reoccurring all these different, visions and different. I mean, he's having all kinds of dreams, etc., and having all kinds of recall and what kind of memory. And he's really worried about his dad, and he understands that he lost his dad at sea. So they did this. These evil people and this whole experiment of Truman, they did this to traumatize the kid in the water, see his dad pass away, and then there's the trauma, right? And see, that's how grotesque this all is. If you really, really just articulate, take a step back and look at it, it's not good. I mean, it isn't. I'm sorry, but it's not. So he's traumatized. He sits on the sea. He's sitting on the beach shore there, just sitting there, looking up at the artificial moon, mind you. Isn't that interesting, Brother Adam? So he's sitting there with the artificial moon above him. He's just sitting there, and all of a sudden, there's this spigot. The spigot of water comes pouring down, and he starts freaking out and panicking. So not only did you gaslight him so much, you destroyed him, his mindset, his psychologically defragmented, can't do nothing, can't go across the ocean, can't go across a bridge, can't do nothing, cut the bridges off. Now you weather modification on him, and you're spraying him with the water hose from heavens above. And he's sitting there on the beachside property saying, "What in the world?" He's like, "What?" He starts panicking and gets up, and he's like, "What in the world's going on?" And then all of a sudden, after it follows around, just like a water hose and a sprinkler system, it automatically goes back and starts flooding everywhere. But it's more prominent, more dominant in that one location. It's pretty funny. So when you look at that, you're thinking, hey, that's the Truman Show, right? So what if in reality this happens all the time? They've admitted it. There's patents on it. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to watch what I say here for the platform's sake, but let's just say there's some things that they can, pop a little electric in the airwaves, and then a little spray will make a downpour on you, okay? It'll just miraculously show up. And it's kind of interesting how this is predictive programming on the highest order, Adam. And Jim Carrey is a test rat. But it's just a little fun plug in there. But what do you think about that, Adam? Because I know we got to watch what we say on weather modification, but there you go. I mean, that's what I see on this scene. He's getting traumatized again, and these memories are building up. He's building more pathways and getting more just defragmented, so conditioned, and beat down. He doesn't even know what to do. If you think about it, this is a very, I'll just straight say it. It's abuse. I mean, let's just be straight up. That's what this is. But then there's people watching it and having entertainment. And it goes to show you for what we're doing today. Like that stuff happens today. Like TikTok videos, you can have something really cool, a really good program out, fully laid out, editing's perfect, everything is so informative. I mean, heck, even if it was all biblical, all whatever. And they won't look at it, but they'll look at somebody, fall off milk crates or fall off and hurt themselves. And that's how bad our brains have been defragmented to believe a lie. And it shows the sin, right? It keeps sinful states keep building up, and we just mock and make fun of people. And that's what and you can go down a huge rabbit hole with that. But what do you think, Adam? That's wild to me.
Yeah, and coming at it from a bit of a different perspective to what all of the gaslighting and all the stuff and all of the trauma that they very intentionally put Truman through in order to keep him where he's at. Um, Makes me think a lot about the the way that, like, before I was truly born again, and during this time when I was starting to read my Bible more, starting to get back into the Word, starting to really truly come to grasp, um, that I was calling myself a Christian, but I was Christian in name only, and and all this was coming together, and I became so entrenched and just wanted to know more about God, wanted to get closer with Him, that it seemed everything around me was like, no, don't do that, no, don't do that, no, don't do that, that's not good. And it's like the gaslighting. It's like you get gaslit uh in this aspect as well, it seems like. And it just made me think a lot about that, that like the enemy will put up every possible conceivable boundary to dissuade you from opening up your Bible and truly repenting and turning to Jesus Christ for salvation. Every possible thing will come up.
Yeah, it's foretelling. I mean, I get it, Adam. I mean, it's in our face, inundated every day, and people just don't. It's hard to see. I mean, when you're being brought up like that all your life, it's just it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
And then
it's as if, this movie is trying to paint, I believe, an inverted twist on things, but the that that moment, I think, is or that because, like Jesus says that, like, we will be hated for our faith in Him and walking with Him, and like the world will try to, like, you know dissuade you in every possible way to keep you from coming to the truth of Jesus Christ. And it's pretty interesting, I think, the parallels in this that this movie brings up.
yeah, I agree with that, Adam. Yeah, the next slide, it's so after Truman gets traumatized one more time, he goes home, and his wife is sitting there inappropriate with the book, which is so strange because it's affiliate, programming. Basically, she's getting money from the Dream Machine 2,
Mm.
and you're just interested that she's reading that, and it's a kid's book, and they don't have any children. It's just really strange, and so she's trying to deflect
Mhm.
him in his journey again. So his
Mhm.
free will is literally being stripped from him. I mean, he really is. He doesn't even know what. I mean, seriously, he's all over the place. They're trying to bring him
Mhm.
back in, subdue him, all these different things, and this subductive, evil intentions on this whole movie. So basically, this part, just to summarize here, um, he's in love with another woman, and then he's married to this woman because the directors, the producers, literally set it up. How sick, right? And he's done. He's destroyed. He's distorted. He's discouraged. And it's interesting they go from a scene here with these two security guards, and they literally say, "Well, they don't see anything. We don't see. Well, they never show anything. They always blur the cameras out when there's like an intimate thing between a man and a woman, and
Mhm.
literally they're showing you right there how sick and demented our lifestyle and our society is going to
Mhm.
be. And guess what? It's future programming, and guess what? That's where we are today in 2025, and you know." It's only God can fix these issues, and I just wanted to throw it in there. So here we go back to the newsstand. Here's Mr. Newsstand Paperman, the arrow dude. I'm pretty sure it's his name. There's a gentleman there that says, "Who needs Europe?" And there's propaganda on the newspaper there. And there's a woman here. This woman's holding a dog, and of
Mhm.
course there's a little dog here, and she's got him on a leash. She's wanting to get a dog fancy. She wants a dog fancy magazine, of course, right? So these
Mhm.
these people are sitting there just kind of casually doing their own thing, and they're actors. And all of a sudden, chaos erupts down the street. Supposedly Trump or Truman's real daddy or the actor daddy's trying to get a hold of him to tell him that he's not dead. There's traumatized. He's just completely out of it. He doesn't even know how to articulate what he's seen. He thinks he sees a ghost out in the street. And then all of a sudden chaos sets in. Okay. and the dog goes down the sidewalk. Everybody gets lined out. He starts noticing. He's like, "Whoa, what's going on, man?" People started hitting me. I almost got hit by a car. All this chaos started setting up, and all of a sudden, the little dog gets off the leash, gets away from the woman, and there's the little dog. You know, we had the greater dog at the beginning of the program here. Now we got the lesser dog with the little dog, and once again, we have this correlation with Watchers. So we have the Canis Minor constellation, the small dog, the lesser dog. We have the remember what said about the Sirius 9 Canis Major, the aka the larger dog. So we have those. We have the connection. There's this bigger dog. There's the lesser dog. Isn't that interesting? So also it just passes on by, and he's completely, what do I do? Which way do I go? I'm in, I don't know. My mind is so, uh, I'm don't even know which way to go now. His compass has been completely disrupted because he's starting to catch on the inconsistencies that is going on into his so-called reality. And so he goes as soon as he's seen his dad, he goes right to his mother, the mother that plays the actor of his mother. Truman asked his mother if his dad had a twin or a brother. I kid you not. And in the screen, at the moment of the time of the picture, her picture is above the mantle of the fireplace, and she sits down, and she's trying to talk Truman down and say, well, it's like, I love you, but then you should have done better. I mean, it's just going back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. But then Truman's like ignoring everything and saying, oh, he's not dead. He died, honey. You just need to go on about your business. Well, sure enough, he goes, did Dad have a doppelganger? Like, did Dad have a twin or a brother? Which refers to, he didn't say doppelganger at this scene, but doppelganger again. You have the twin. We have the twin. We have the picture on the mantle there, the portrait. We have the twin, the Gemini, right? How crazy this all is. How crazy it all is. So his mother is asking this question, and the camera shows, like I showed you with the picture there, and then there's a double picture. But as when she goes and does all that, and basically sends him on his way, and he's like, now he doesn't know what to say. He can't tell what reality is. His brain is literally mush. So he goes to his basement. He's rambling through all of his junk, everything from memorabilia concepts and everything. He has this trunk full of memories, trunk full of, let's just say, things that he's held on to. Well, all of a sudden, his wife comes down. Let's just say this, I don't think it's, if this happened in real life, I don't think it'd be a real marriage because it's directors and producers. There's all kinds of craziness. This is not done right. Just throwing it out there. So she goes down there, coming down the stairway, and you see a hawk, let's just say an eagle, on the wall. She turns the lamp on. So she proceeds to turn the lamp on, and it shines a little more. He looks up at her, and the first thing I thought about was the devil, right? And the phoenix, the eagle, the phoenix will rise. This feminine spirit, this let's just say Lilith spirit encapsulated into this film, right? The divine feminine, right? Well, in this verse here, 1 Peter 5:8, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, is a roaring lion, walking about, seeking whom he may devour. And he's getting devoured now. Just watch this. So he's getting devoured. So she comes down the stairway. She sits there and tries to talk him down. She even makes a ad. She even says to buy some type of food or something. And you can see where she sits here, and she'll move her shoulder over a little bit and show the whole eagle, and then there's that lamp, and he could see plain as day down there. So this is all deliberately done, and it's insane. And then also she does this really provocative thing. She'll put her hands up like a Y at him. It's so sick, and she'll stand there and try to be subductive. It's just insane, right? So the way it's all, and he's doing wrong. He's in his treasure chest box, concealing things from his wife. Literally. It's literally breaking commandments. You're doing things wrong. You're doing things of an evil intention. And as you go on, well, that's the wrong slide. But as you go on, so what is that? What do you say about that, Brother Adam? Because to me, that is very sick, very sick. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about this. But what do you say about this?
Yeah, it's pretty apparent. There's a lot of stuff, and later on in the movie too, the wife makes remarks about how basically the whole marriage is like a sham, and when in the very beginning of it, she was like, "Oh yeah, this is my life. Like this is great." So yeah, there's a lot of attack, I think, on biblical marriage for sure in this film.
Yeah, 100% agree. So as you zoom in and look at her, you can obviously see it, and it's interesting that of course she's wearing a white dress, but there's red on it again. You know, she
Hmm.
wears a lot of red. Well, these actors will wear a lot of red when it comes to the women. It's interesting to me. So I thought about this verse, and Matthew 5:27. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay, it should not happen. Adultery should not happen. It should not be. And that's what this movie is doing. It's portraying husbands going sneaking, thinking about this girl's old. It was like I think it was like a uh, jacket or something, or a scarf or something like that. Something of a wearing a clothing of his old girlfriend, supposedly, that was trying to get him out of the dome, right, out of the
Hmm.
artificial simulation, so to speak. And I just thought this is interesting that it's just showing back and forth. It's charged with negative energy. I mean, it's charged with negative demonic energy. And so right after this scene, you have there's a replay in his mind. He's having a recap of a memory. Okay, his friend is playing the trombone, or I think not the trombone, but the trumpet, and he's squealing. He's in his ear with the trumpet, just squealing at him, right? And of course, this is a reenactment of the early years of Truman. So they're in high school, or whatever, in the band. Well, he's watching this woman, right? And there's this horn being blown in Truman's ears, like he can't get away from it. Don't look over there. He keeps looking over. Truman keeps looking over at the girl beside the tree, his future so-called girlfriend, and the buddy picks up on it and starts gaslighting him more, and bringing that trumpet to him, and see, there's that sound again. There's the harmonics. There it is, right in his ear. Well, he's smiling at her. She's smiling back, and there's like this love thing going. This is before the event of that. His, I think her name's Mel. I can't remember, Melanie. I'm not sure. I forget my name. Forgive me on that. But Truman's actual wife. It's just strange to me that Truman is still having, he understands that there's some things even back then when he was young. So I thought about this verse. This is a verse, a good verse, Matthew 5:28. But I say unto you that whosoever looked up on a woman to lust after her have committed adultery with her already in his heart. Well, I know that they haven't been married yet in the scene, but this whole film is literally going back and forth in competition between two women, and one of them actually does care for him. The other one wants to use him as a money bag, and how sick that is. But that's the reality of it. That is the reality of it on this film. Okay, so not only are they committing sin, they're teaching this to people, and it's being seed has been planted in people. Okay, and I think it's just interesting how these old movies. So here they go. They send this girl, his future wife. Truman gets literally tackled by this cheerleader, and that's where his new wife, his new journey as far as the Truman Show, right? And they wanted to keep that girl away from him, so they paid this actress to be Truman's wife. And he's like, he hunts and hunts down the one that he has feelings for right after all this, right? And he has a memory. He's recapping a memory. They're in the library, and guess what? His future girlfriend at the time, she's wearing red, Adam. There's that red again. It says stay away. Remember the Matrix, the whole decoding with that just a minute ago, talking about stay away from the woman in red. There's a woman that he's literally fallen in love with during the show. And what's so interesting, she has a pin. She has a pin on her shirt there, and it says, how's it going to end? so so it's almost like woman in red, temptation. You got all those different applications here, brother Adam, and to me this is where the rails come off. What do you say about this, Adam? What do you think about this?
I've been thinking about like who, like in a bigger picture as well, like who this particular character represents. Like, is is she actually like the more like the serpent, like saying like, like you're basically you're a prisoner here because like, and I found that this film like flip flops. It feels like it's like you're getting flip flopped with the narrative that they're wanting you to think like, is this a good thing that he's here, or is it a bad thing? What's going on? But if you think about it in terms of like how God did create it, Jesus created everything for us, and he has uh, a perfect plan for each and every one of us if we only like submit and listen to him and truly follow him. And like this portrays that in a way that it makes you think like, oh, the creator is evil for doing this, and that he needs to be set free. Truman needs to be set free, and that's like that goes back to like the lie in the garden, like the first original lie. Like, did God really say that? Like, you shall be as gods if you partake of this fruit, and the fall, everything spirals out from there, obviously. So like, I've just been really interested in like, is that is this moment like that kind of representation, or like what's going on here? And yeah, definitely like using uh like thinking about it and lust as a way to bring this about is it's just another example of the attack on biblical marriage, I think.
Well, here's my take on it, Adam. I think of Lilith and
Hmm.
the whole Lilith story and that whole, I think it's the Jewish mythology narrative, all that concepts with the
Hmm.
Lilith, the Screech Owl, and Isaiah. I think about competitiveness between Eve and that whole story. I don't put any let's just say I don't put any stock in that. Okay, but what I will say there's Lilith demonic spirit application, but when I think about these things, it's like a duality. It's like a competition between the prize, right? The
Hmm.
man, the man that's in the garden, that's under the dome. Like
Hmm.
seriously, it's kind of that's where I'm getting that feel for it in that way.
Interesting. Yeah.
So she tells him to leave. They're in the library. They're going to go on their little like 5 minute trip to the beach where they can just hold hands, all this stuff, and fall madly in love. And all of a sudden, this Toyota Camry from back in the backwoods comes out of nowhere, and it's not got sand tires or anything on it. And she's like saying that we only have a certain amount of time. They know, they know. And she's trying to tell him, and he's like completely blindsided by the whole thing because he thinks his whole reality is real and legit.
Hmm.
And he's like falling madly in love with this girl, and all of a sudden, this guy, she's like, they're coming, they're coming. And this guy shows up, some man. She's like, that's not my dad. And he's claiming that she's crazy and need to be on some type of psycho drugs or something.
Hmm.
And she's got some kind of condition. Like literally, they're saying that she's crazy, and that's sad, right? And so there's more lies, and there's more deceit. So he's being deceived on all angles, right? The power, the prince of the power of the hour. So he's going right back into the same thing, and he has this red scarf, right? The red blouse, the red shirt, where he has, fast forward to, let's the present time during the program, that he has this trunk full of, memorable things from his childhood. So he has this red scarf that she wore. How's this going to end, right? And he's like in disbelief, and he has his magazines. He's making these magazines because he cannot remember. He's trying to figure out because they took her completely off the set. She could no longer work for the so-called production of this live stream dome encounter. So he makes pictures of her with magazine clippings, and she's like staring at him, all traumatized and everything. She watches every episode, trying to free him from the matrix. Do you think about that, Adam? She's
Hmm.
trying to disconnect him from this artificial matrix that he's been exposed to all of his life since the womb. Isn't that interesting?
Hmm.
And she goes on, she's crying and all this stuff, and she's like, "Come on, Truman, you can do it," all this stuff, and he's having these decision makings, people just they're completely marveling after this guy, right? Because they watched him since he was been a baby. So remember that HNR, remember the harmonics to
Hmm.
aspect ratio. You got the whole thing with the sound, And there's another camera, right? The same camera that's in the back of the Ford Taurus, and all of a sudden, Adam, it starts going. You see this frequency, and everybody starts holding their ears and everything, all the earpieces and everything, and the set work starts going haywire, right? There's people talking about this now with the UFO phenomenon. There's signals being disrupted, and so here he is, and he the radio guy gets on there and he starts talking to him. There's all this distortion, and he's like, "Oh, he's turning on this, he's turning here, he switch the frequency, he can hear us." And Truman's like driving out of control. He's getting erratic. He kicks the camera a bunch of times. It gets distortion. It looks like static from 1988 on an old TV, and he's sitting there busting it up and everything. And he's like driving around in complete panic. Turn to Lancaster, do this, and he almost hits a woman with an umbrella. And all of a sudden there's signals. So the whole thing is manipulated by signal. Once again, folks, you got Truman being, I keep saying that. Forgive me, President Trump. I've been tongue tied like crazy about that. Truman show. So anyways, but Truman has these signal disruptions during the set. Everybody's panicking. He notices everybody stops. He starts noticing he's getting like DEFCON 5. He looks in his Ford Taurus and looks out the window, and as you can see here, he's on Lancaster, right? He's on Lancaster, but you see this once again, an obelisk. It's a big obelisk behind the car. As soon as he pulls up, and it's so in sync with that parking space. Just think about that, Brother Adam, how crazy that is. So you have this Osiris concept, and you got cameras on every angle, watching and monitoring. And Truman's distraught. He doesn't even know what to do. He sees this. He goes back to the paper booth. The newspaper guy. He says, "Crack down on the homeless." Blah blah. And then I want to point this out about that connection with Trump. When I mentioned the 45th president, and I know I reached a little bit on that. I know, but when it says Sea Haven's Island City Fathers say enough is enough. You know how he always said that. It was like his line, "Enough is enough." Right, Adam? So he did that on the first president, when he was the first 45th president, his first term. He said enough's enough. It was like a trademark, man. People going around, enough's enough, T-shirts, everything going. So why is it in this newspaper? According to the newspaper, what we was talking about earlier with the Dog Fancy magazine, and isn't that interesting? There's why I wanted to keep tying. There's so many consistent tie-ins. We could go for hours on this. So he looks back. He usually goes and gets his paper. So the old boy looks back and is like, "Man, where's Truman going?" And he bypasses everything, doesn't get his daily newsletter. He's on his way. Okay, and he's looking around. He's observing everybody. Everybody's acting like NPCs, from a video game. You know what I'm talking about, Adam. And they're all walking around like robotic androids. I guess it's what's coming to a theater near you in 2028, 2030, when there's more robots than humans. So Truman's going around, looking around, and he finally just takes the leap of faith. He takes his hands out. He starts blocking traffic. He's like, "It's my show. I'm gonna make it happen. If y'all hit me, no more Truman show, right?" So he's going on this big tangent. He goes to this place to get answers, and the elevator opens up, and the door, just particle board, and they're all sitting there on their set with their cakes and cookies. They're all just sitting there like, "Oh man, Truman, you shouldn't be in here." And then they throw him out. He sees all this stuff. It's just trauma, right? Trauma based. And then, he's getting older. He's almost 30 years old, right? So I want to point something out just to tie it all back in, because he's going around like he's in a panic mode. He's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I'm going to pull this in because I have this really. Do you remember the slide I told everybody to wait and watch and observe and wait for? The day 10,909. It was the very opening scene of the Truman Show. Well, he had a birthday. So the narrative is he was going to turn 30 very soon. So at the beginning of the show, though, you can go look this up. It'll say it's a fake intro, but meaning that it should be 48 days in all reality according to the character, but they had to shift the timeline, the narrative, so during the movie you would not know this, but 2 days go by, and it's supposed to be December the 13th, and guess what happens, Brother Adam? He literally was born in 1967, January 29th, day 10,909, like I just said, the 48 days away. But they shift the narrative. They shift it, and to fit the narrative, and 2 days later on the show, as it right here in the very bottom, It says the Truman Show 2 days later after day 10909 would mean that it is the day of 10911 of the Truman's life on the show, as the film explicitly shows a newspaper dated 2 days further on, making the progression of time within the narrative. So isn't that interesting, Brother Adam, that there's that they couldn't have went 3 days, they could have went 4 days, they could have went 1 day, but they went and added those 2 days onto 10909 and made it 10,911. There's another 9/11 reference. And why is this all on the Truman Show? I have no clue. My job is just to bring it up here and show it in a way that it's presentable to in layman's terms, so to speak. It's just, right when it's in front of you like this, it's so hard to find when you're watching it in live. It's so hard. So 2 days go by, he has a birthday, right? And I was just looking at the way the timeline shift and all that and the progression of the narrative. And there you go. You got 9/11 like we just talked about. But what do you say about that, brother Adam? Because there's so many connections with September, 01, and all these narratives. So you remember the Gray's Almanac, right? 1950 to 2000. Just think about what I just said. And then all this fits. It's just so strange how they picked so many different elements from all these movies and collaborate into other movies later on down the road. And I get that they do that. But what's your take on this? Because there's another 9/11 reference.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's almost like it's boggling to think about how many shows and movies and all kinds of media have so many little hints and these secret hidden meanings that all point to 9/11 for some reason or another. It's really mind-boggling to think about. And like you said, as to exactly why, well, you're bringing forth the information, and there can be more digging into figuring out why exactly. But yeah, it's like you said, they could have gone 3, 4, 5, 10 days after, but nope, they had to do 2 for that specific reason. And that's something that's like, yeah, I don't know how you came up with putting all that together, because like you're saying, as you're watching it, it's not quite something that you think about, how many like days have passed within the movie. So yeah, that's pretty bizarre. And then you have also which I'm sure you're probably going to get into next, but like the traveling aspect and the airlines that I think you've got some slides on that too. That all has to do with like air travel. That's very telling too.
100%. And I appreciate the kind words, Adam. This is so Truman goes across the street and he tries to go find his buddy at the vending where I think it's like some ice cream parlor or something where this guy fills up vending machines, his best pal, right? He's telling his pal, like, I got to get out of here. There's something. I'm onto something. You know how you hear those conspiracy theorists in the past? I'm onto something. I see something. There's a gateway or a sinkhole opening in my backyard. I think it's a portal. Bring the tinfoil hats out, right? And people discredit people like that, right? And I can only imagine what they say about me. But anyways, moving on. So Truman is approaching his buddy. He's filling a vending machine up. Of course, there's a camera in it. He's going on about that. He's like, I got to get out of here. I got to figure out something. He's always trying to tell him. And his pal's always like, no, you need to stay with it, bro. Just stay in dismay, man. Your life's good, man. Just stay with it. It's okay. You don't want to go. You don't want to be free from this. You want to stay here forever so I can make money. I mean, it's pretty sick. So yeah, speaking of tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, they want us. This is what a conspiracy theorist looks like, especially in my neck of the woods, and they think you're homeless and have a tinfoil hat on and they're just crazy out of this world, insane. But when I look at this and I think about it, that's how they depict it. Like, people are to be depicted like this. Even today, when you have this freedom of information, you can just pop stuff up and supposedly have a ability to communicate and bring this information to people without getting, let's just say, miraculously vanishing. But when I think about these, the 3-letter agency that came up with the concept of conspiracy, and literally conspiracies, most of them have all came true. Let's just throw that out there. And this is where you want to get your tinfoil hat on. So Truman goes and he's like, I've got to go to Fiji. I've got to get there. He's been so inspired by his buddy. He's like, man, I'm gonna go somewhere where no true man has gone before. So travelers beware. He goes into this. He's gonna go buy a ticket. Okay. And travelers beware, and he's in his office, and look at it. It says, "Have you bought enough traveling insurance to protect against terrorists, disease, wild animals, street gangs?" And what does that make you think of in today's society? The last 5 years, this has nothing been. This is headlines. This is all you hear since like 2000. This is all you hear. Beware, don't travel. I gotta watch what I say. So continue on. So here you go. He goes with that, and he comes into this office, and the traveling agent's gonna set him up for. He's like, I gotta get out of here. I'm losing my mind. So he sits down. It could happen to you. And if anybody's seen my visual disturbance channel, we've talked about it here with Brother David here on FOJC, Dark Lightning and 828. We talking about the TV show Manifest. We've talked and I will just big a shout out to somebody out here, that Ashton gentleman that's been trying to expose and bring to light that there's 0 point energy. Let me tell you something, folks. The Ashton gentleman that's on X, and he puts his whole career on the line to try to study the orbs and everything that Malaysia 370, all that good stuff. This poster with this lightning bolt in it, it's a prime example of dark lightning and manifestation and disappearing and showing that this could be that 0 point energy is a thing. And Truman's over like, man, I wish I had me a plane. I'd be out of this place in a heartbeat, right? So this girl comes up, we can't do it. We can't get you a plane ticket. We're out. All the planes are sold out. There's no tickets, blah, blah. So he's completely, once again, in dismay. He can't leave this island. He's tied to it. He can't break from this so-called artificial matrix that he's been, I guess, bought into or paid into. Somebody has literally sold him into this dome world. How sick, right? And so he goes to try to do a bus. It gets even more bizarre, guys. So he gets in a bus, and the man's like, man, I'm gonna get this dry. It's a stick, right? So he's trying to change the gears, and he's stripping the transmission out on purpose. So he looks back, he's like, man, Truman, there's no way I can take these folks, but Truman's in the back. I can't take him. He's tearing the transmission up, and and that gentleman gets up. Sorry, folks, the engine's blowed, and Truman just sits back there all like innocent, like I'm going to Fiji, or I'm going somewhere. I gotta get out of this crazy place. Everybody's crazy, and so if you look, and all the people get up out of their seat casually, walk away. Sorry, folks, we'll reimburse your tickets. Well, I want to bring everybody's attention to the driver up up top of the mirror here. It says 329. So, Brother Adam, we've been talking about 45 through here. If you take 329, if you take, 3 plus 5, and it equals 9, right? 5 times 9 equals, well, you got it, 45. And I just wanted to see how there's so many, Truman's looking at the 329, and he's just like observing and so in dismay that he can't believe this reoccurring loop that he's living in safe haven, or so-called to speak, sea haven. That's what he's thinking. And so he gets and has a little, let's just say he has a little bit of traumatic experience, because he's like, I'm gonna get my wife to take me out of this place. I gotta get out of here. I've tried the airlines, I've tried the bus ticket. I can't. Nothing's happening. This is all deliberately done, and it's just pure madness. Against, of course, once again, trauma. Right? Of course, once again, ads. Of course, once again, making money off of him. Of course, once again, his life is in shambles because he can't figure out how to even get off this rock that he's living in. Right? So the 329 thing got me. 5 plus 2, or 5 times 9 equals 45. And there you go, Adam. There's some more 45 numbers, right? And what is it, right? Is it, really what is it? I know that I have a little speculation, but it just gets more bizarre. So, moving on here, he gets in the car with his wife and starts doing Travis Pastrana types of things, drifting vehicles and doing rally car, turned his Ford Taurus into a rally car and getting out of there, right? And every turn, every crack and crevice he goes down, there's the actors coming in with their semis or cars or whatever and blocking him from going out. And he goes in this circle. He keeps spinning. He gets in the circle screaming at her. And of course, there's, they're fighting back and forth. The radio's going and all this chaos, right? Well, of course, he ends up at this bridge. And his wife's like, you can't do it, Truman. You won't do it. I'm sorry. You just can't. You're just having such a hard time. Well, here's this bridge. Once again, folks, we have a bridge concept. Okay, a bridge, enlightenment onto the other side. He's going to get his answers if he gets out of here, right? So he's on the Ford Taurus, and all of a sudden he takes that woman's hand and he said, "Drive this car." He pushes the gas and tromps it, and he closes his eyes so it gets across it. And when he gets across there, Adam, they do everything, man. They got fire and brimstone coming down. They shooting blow torches at him and everything, right? And all of a sudden, here's what's so bizarre. You know, speaking of nukes and stuff that's in the news and all this, it's always speculation, always stuff to gaslight the public. So here we go. You know, Truman gets so far after the flames, and there's a nuclear power station that's supposedly going in DEFCON 5. And everybody's got hazmat suits on and everything. The police officers are sitting there trying to do roadblocks and trying to divert everybody to go back to town, you know. And the police officer makes a mistake and says, "Thank you, Truman," you know. And and so all of a sudden, he's like, "I got to get out of here. I'm going to make it happen. I don't care what I got to do. I don't know if I'm going to go, you know, running like, you know, whoever." I mean, he's literally going to go hiking at full speed. He starts jumping over cars and everything. And the screen on the slide on the screen here, it makes me think of UFOs and astronauts. You know, could you imagine? "We're going to keep you here forever." You know, "Yeah, Truman, come back. We love you." And they're in silver suits. You know, it looks like something off of a 2040 film of a sci-fi flick of outer space. And they're all trying to sedate him and everything. "Bring the tranquilizers," you know. And I mean, I guess that's what it would look like, you know, with the alien abduction, you know, when people are out in the woods. I guess that's what they're doing, you know, because if you think about it, Adam, we've done many programs and I've talked about it a lot. Yeah, only a passport will only get you so far, brother Adam. A passport will only get you so far. It doesn't matter if you're American, it'll only get you so far. Okay? So if you go outskirts of the nation and go to different countries, there's only so many you can't go over the borders. There's certain levels of clearance you can't authorize. But it makes me think of that. You know, if you go out, if we was to have a boat or something or a plane, and I say, "Brother Adam, are you gonna go straight south? Let's go to Antarctica." Okay? And if we go past Antarctica, deploy the fighter jets, you know. Mayday. You know, he's left his roost. You know, he's left the country. You know, and then they'll be, because I've heard, literally in all seriousness, I've heard that you'll be met with force. Like seriously, there's like something out there that you can only go so far out. And isn't that compelling that they're showing you that this is what would happen? And it is this thing's happened throughout our time. And they're showing, once again, predictive programming, and Truman's running for the woods, scared to death. And these guys are like, you know, "I'm going to take you back home." So what happened? You got hazmat suit guys, you know, the Secret Service comes up on you, the Black Ops come up on you, they apprehend you, they take you back home in your nice little bed. You got the state troopers there. They're all looking at him like he done wrong. And she's like, "Well, Truman, we gotta straighten this out, right?" So guess what? Truman again, keep him back in his box, right? Kick him when he's down. He's trying to be free, but he can't. And so the two men are like, "Hey, better watch your boy. You know, he's getting out of line. Our money's gonna go out the door if you ain't careful." So later on, they start doing this interview with the Christoph, the one we've been talking about during this whole broadcast. Christoph lives in this luminary artificial moon that's observing the whole, let's just say, Sea Haven. And when you think about this and you look at about all the speculations and theories and ufologists, they're saying, yes, the moon is fake. It's a artificial craft. I've heard everything under the sun. God's word is not void. God's word is joyful. God's word is true. When it talks about the luminaries, talks about the biblical cosmology, talks about the earth and the lesser light, the brighter light, right? The sun being the greater light, the moon being the lesser light. And it's just so interesting that people come up with these, let's just say, it's absurdity to me. Because how could you say that the moon is just a flying aircraft or a flying Death Star come in the sky? So Christoph is getting interviewed by everybody. They're letting him be on the radio. Once again, we got frequencies. He's talking about Truman's life. And he's talking about he's been there since the beginning, since they cut the umbilical cord. And it literally looks, when the camera is inside of the artificial moon, it literally looks like a moon, even with the holographic technology. And I'll say it one more time. Holographic technology and AI components and all these quantum computers, you're here just soon, before 2030, you're not going to be able to understand and articulate what the demonic side is and the angel side and even the digital side. It's all going to be merged. AI is saying that, folks. AI is saying that. You won't be able to tell. It'll be all a blur. You won't be able to navigate. How scary, right? So when we do these programs to literally, if anything, expose this, get another pair of lenses on it to look at these videos and movies that have brought so much insanity. Yeah, the excitement, entertainment, but then there's a darker side to them, so to speak. So we're supposed to be children of the day, bring things to light, be of good cheer, bring joy and peace. And when you're talking about these controversial topics, people look at it and they get really upset. I've seen people get upset about it, but that's just the way it is. So no wonder Hollywood and everything has done such a. I hate to say it, they've really messed this up. They really messed this up psychologically. MK Ultra on steroids, Adam. Would you like to comment on any of this, brother Adam? I'll give you the floor.
Um, Now, just to kind of reiterate again, it's like how many things are out there that are trying to dissuade you from, like that are out there that try to dissuade you from a true like relationship with Jesus Christ. It's crazy. Um, and again, that this movie takes that and twists it, but still, I think it you could still glean some um, parallels from it.
100%. So I'm just going to throw us out here. It's got a lot of controversy right now between let's just say I hate to even use this term, Adam, because I don't really believe in this term. I think this is a term to gaslight the people and make people really frown upon the topic. I believe in biblical cosmology. Okay, just straight up facts. You can call it the flat Earth has been twisted. That term has been twisted. It used to be you could associate flat Earth with biblical cosmology instantly, like 11, 12 years ago. Now it's frowned upon that it doesn't exist, that it's not even a thing, right? Oh yeah, them guys are complete quacks. There's a lot of war going on with that. A lot of weird social media narratives and weird things going on in the realm of globe people versus the so-called flat Earth. So both of them are at war with each other now, and it's just strange to me. So all these parallels, when you look at the ice wall, you look at the Book of Enoch, and you look at all these different concepts throughout history. You can look this stuff up, and so Trump is, or I said it again, folks. Truman is riding this boat, right? He's in his A game. He's ready to go. He's breaking free from this matrix. I tell you what, guys, it's time for a cup. It's time for a sip of coffee or a sip of tea. Whew, yeah. One moment. Forgive me. Uh, but the boat literally takes and jabs the side of the wall. And is it metaphoric? Is it symbolic? Is this some kind of like pre-programming just to dumb down the masses? I mean, come on, Adam. And he hits it. He jams into the wall, and he's like, what? I can't tell what just happened. And I know that you want to expand upon this scene. I know you have a little bit to say about it, so go ahead and speak upon, for him being so traumatized through this whole experiment, and then he finally hits it and makes it to the wall. A lot of people would laugh at us and say, well, you're the ice wall believers or you them flat earth believers. Well, biblical concept, the whole biblical cosmology, I believe every word of God, like every letter from Genesis to Revelation, can't take or add to it, to take away from it or add to it, right? And it's just interesting that there's just so much hate toward this. But we can watch this movie and know that there's a paradigm between, there's a correlation that whoever had this script written out in real life, they had some type of knowledge, Brother Adam, to like articulate this and make this make this whole narrative, this whole plot, this whole story to pull this off. What do you say? Expand upon Truman's impact to the wall and what the sale and everything is about.
Yeah, this the interestingly enough, I just found out just before we got on the show that I had never heard of such a thing, but there's an award called the Saturn Award, and the Saturn Awards go to it's for it's from the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films, and they award every year this Saturn Award to writers, and the writer for the Truman Show won the Saturn Award. And if you know anything about the connection with Saturn and Satan. It's pretty crazy, and the depths of the Hollywood entertainment industry and its connection with all kinds of wickedness. And I mean, some of the stuff is like just about outright satanic dabblings. Um, like for sure, the authors of this knew the reality of our world, and the fact that there is a firmament, as God puts it. There's a firmament, and that word firmament means hard metal, stamped out metal, that is enclosing our world. That God made us a loving home, very carefully made just for us to live in. And the this is completely uh predictive programming, and it preloads the viewers to think like, oh wow, like this isn't a movie, so clearly this could never be reality. And then when you come to the biblical understanding of how God has made our world, and that according to what's written, there is a you know a hard enclosure around us, that at some point, like you were saying, if you continue going south, and like you said, interestingly, we can't go all the way down there because we will be stopped by force. But if you kept on going, eventually you can hit something like a wall. So it preloads the viewers to think like, well, that's just made up. Clearly it's made up because it was in a movie. So I think that's one of the strategies that the enemy can use to um, make people think that you're crazy for just telling it like it is. And also, yeah, on the sale interested me because just about the only number that I did catch in here, like I said, I'm not a big on the whole number thing. Is on the sale it has 139, and I was watching this through on if you go if you're watching it on an Amazon Prime account or something, you can. It has this feature called X-ray that it'll tell you trivia and stuff about the movie, and it just so happened that I looked at that at this moment, and it says there that this 139 is there in reference to Psalm 139. So, and it also says that there's several other references to Psalm 139 in the movie. So again, clearly the authors, they're getting at and making a point to include uh, references to the Bible, howbeit like they're a twisted version of it.
I agree, Adam. And what's getting ready to take place after he's found his way to that, let's just say, that great stairway of enlightenment. So, we've been talking about this through this whole broadcast. Who is really Truman? Right? Is he a depiction of, are they literally symbolically saying it's a depiction of Adam, or is it a depiction of Jesus? Of like, in a metaphorical way, like a literally esoteric demonic way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So check this out. So he gets off, he literally gets off the boat, finds out the water is literally like inches deep, right? It's not even like, I don't even think the water is that, it was a couple of feet out, but he gets up against the wall and he can literally stand on water. How much blasphemy do you want to see in a movie? Literally, Jesus Christ walked on water, and he's looking and holding the wall, observing, marveling after, looking up at the heaven, like the spray paint of the clouds. He's like, oh, wow. I made it. I'm ascending. I'm exceeded my mission. Fiji it is. I'm on my way. I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming. I'm breaking free from this cage. You remember I say this all the time, despite all my pain, I'm still riding a cage. It's an old rock song. I do not subscribe to that, but it does fit for this program. I wonder if Jim Carrey thinks he's still riding a cage. I have seen stuff when it comes to real life stuff, not him being an actor. He's in bad shape. I pray for him. He actually needs prayer, to be honest with you. So as he goes and stands on water, he goes out, and you can see the screenshot come in and observe. You can see the stairway just all of a sudden appear, right? And he's watching, observing, and then all of a sudden he looks and he gets up to the stairway. He knows it's three-dimensional and he can walk up it. and he knows that it's not a mirage or a hologram. And all of a sudden, Kristoff says, Truman, come back. Truman, please. I've been here since the beginning. He's whispering in his ear, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he's using frequency, using sound, all these speaker systems, everything. And here's the kicker, folks. Remember the ring that he had at the beginning of the program? He actually took that ring off, that camera, and gave it to his daddy. So just think about it. That whole time they could track him, but that's why he succeeded so much to get past all the other cameras, and he got on that boat because he didn't have that ring at the time. During the ending of the program here. So Kristoff is saying, "Come back! I'm here. I'm your creator of this place," and he's like literally portraying to be God, and he's like acting like he's the son, like like he's
Mm-hmm.
it's his begotten son. Like it's so sick and demented, Adam. This is like, and it's going to get really rocky here in a few moments. So Kristoff's talking to him all these good things, right? He's sitting there trying to whisper in his ear pretty much and say, "Come on back to Daddy. I'll take care of you." He even makes commentary that the world outside here is scary and destructive, and it's vile, it's evil. But to here, I
He
can
says
help you.
lies and deception as well.
Okay, so lies and deception. So here he comes in. So he's like, "I'm give you all truth," but the whole entire time he lied about his wife. He lied about his
Mm-hmm.
pal. He lied about every single aspect of his life. So that's what I was saying through this whole program. The devil going around like a roaring lion, destroying everything, just going crazy, destroying families and everything. Just insanity, pure insanity coming around. And there's no different when you look at the paradigm of our reality in 2025. This stuff, the puppet masters that you hear about, all these different things about data and etc. There's some very evil things going on. I will say that. And the Watchers that took the oath, the fallen angels that took that oath in Mount Hermon, they still here. They're still playing around with the humans, and they know how to pull on their strings, right, so to speak. And this Kristoff would be a character that fits that profile. So the last few here, Truman's sitting there. He's all like, watching and listening to what his so-called boss man, artificial daddy, you know, is telling him, and he kind of looks at him, kind of squints at the screen, looks straight up in the camera, and he literally does this. He gets to the top of the stairway, the ascension ladder, mind you, which you want to get into Kabbalah and all that esoteric nonsense and the chakras and all that, which I don't even subscribe to. But this is the dangers of this. This is the dangers of demonic forces coming into your literally giving in over to things and manipulation of the mind. It's disgusting. Truman takes his arms out. He bows, and then after that, he pulls his arms out, and literally a depiction of what happened in Calvary at the cross. I mean, it literally is the place of the skull, Golgotha, rendering that in a figurative sense and up on a stairway, doing that and claiming to be Christ like. And he's getting ready to go through the black door, the gate door, the hollow, like literally he's going to ascend to another realm. He's going to get out of his shelter and he's going to go to a place, where he's never seen before, that he's been only dreaming of. And it's pretty telling, brother Adam. It's pretty telling. And then he goes, he makes the comment. He said, "Just in case I don't see you, good afternoon and good evening and good night." And then he exits out. And then all of a sudden, the girl in red, she goes running and she's going to try to, go see where he's at, so to speak, in the parking lot out there in oblivion, wherever that. It doesn't even show that part.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what I want to say, wrapping it up. Oh, before we move on, what would you say about that, brother Adam, about the cross and the whole blaspheming of Jesus on here? What would you say about that?
Yeah, it's interesting also that the doorway is black, and then there's a lot of scripture to be said about outer darkness and what lies outside of the firmament, But there you got outer darkness, and like you really want to step out into outer darkness, and it's it's pretty crazy. And the whole thing reminds me of like the Gnostic doctrines and stuff that teach about like uh the there's a demiurge that like built everything, and that it's evil, and the goal is to escape it, and all this really horrible Gnostic teaching that is, and a lot of it goes into like what we now think of like the New Age, but the New Age is nothing but the oldest lie repackaged and worded slightly different, but with the same thing that just gets you to doubt what God said. And all God said is like just basically obey me, love me, and then there you go. Um, and it's it's pretty crazy to see that one thing I did, like I was saying at the beginning, I hadn't watched this in a long time, but that is one part that stuck in my mind, especially coming to realize what the Bible says about how God made the earth, and that all the scriptures of outer darkness. I was always like, whoa, he stepped out into outer darkness. That's chilling.
Well, you you hit the nail on the head, Adam. I'm so glad that you articulated that so much better than I could. And you think about he's going from the light, like he had the light
Hmm.
inside this
Hmm.
dome into that
Hmm.
let's just say the vortex of darkness and that outer darkness. It's so oh man, it's so telling. I mean, welcome to the
It
Twilight
is,
Zone. Welcome to the
yeah.
Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's very telling, and that's where I was saying like it's weird because you get this like flip flop of as you're watching this like um who's Truman supposed to be, and what's like almost like what's good, what's bad, but then it kind of really sums it all up in the end here, and you really get the true picture of the Gnostic doctrine and the belief that um that as I know Brother David and John Pounders have said on a lot of their programs as well, like where you have Helena Blavatsky saying that they say that the serpent in the garden is actually God and stuff, like all these horrible things, because what this ends up painting the picture as is like the creator, right, who created all this stuff. It paints that as a prison that Truman is in, and that the goal is to escape the prison. When in reality, the true biblical version of this is that God is he's a loving God. God is love, and he created everything perfect, and like in the garden, like everything was perfect, everything was there, and because he is God, like everything is truly perfect. But in this case, this is not God. Obviously, this is a twisted portrayal that leads you to think that the garden and the ideal of submission to God, and doing God's will and loving him is somehow a prison, which is absolutely absurd to think about. It's like, why would you not want to serve the one true God and love him and and commune with him, Uh, so yeah, I think at the very end here, it really paints the picture of what they're really getting at.
And you said that so perfectly, Adam. You know, when you think about so when so Adam, I want to throw this out here real quick. So Fiji, he kept referencing Fiji. So when you go back and look, there's folklore. There's a lot of different takes on this, but there's a fringe topic when you talk about the Fiji. They say Fiji has ties to Atlantis,
Oh,
Lemuria, right? Or and
huh.
there's this snake. I don't forgot the particular name of the snake. There's a snake god that is wrapped up with Fiji, and it's so it goes right along exactly verbatim what you just spoke about, brother Adam. And when you
Wow, that's
so
crazy.
so he keeps talking about I want to be enlightened. I want to go to Fiji. I want to.
Mhm.
It's a new place. I want to get out. I want to be knowledgeable. Like he's
Mhm.
craving knowledge. Did you notice
Ex-
that through the whole program? He's like, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. I gotta have it. I can't get no more than what I don't want nobody else. Because he's living in a pod, but he wants to soak everything up. And so let that be a lesson to everybody. When you apply, all this filthy stuff that we've literally presented tonight, let's be better. Let's do better. Let's be better humans. Let's be better Christians. Let's serve the Lord and literally look at this stuff and say, I'm not going to do it. I'm not giving into this darkness, this outer darkness. I can't be one leg in and one leg out. You know what I mean? Let me put my leg in the darkness doorway and then come out here to the light and just say everything's good. I can't keep doing this. there's going to be consequences to our actions, right? And I just want to sum it up to end this program. One of my favorite verses, Ephesians 6, verse 12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against the spiritual wickedness in high places. And if you look at the whole figurative sense of it and what Mr. Truman went through, he was battling principalities that he didn't even know that was there. He thought it was all just there, everything was good, and he was just on a high pedestal and everybody loved him, right? And then he started waking up and seeing that his life is not what it seems to be. It's almost incomplete. So here's that thing, right? You're talking about that void. And people want to fill their void with certain things that are not good for their soul or their human genome. Okay, curses upon their family trees or whatever. When you do not apply the biblical narrative and don't apply Christ and the Holy Spirit and anything, if you just disregard it and you say that you can play around with these principalities, you can play around with the number 88 and time travel and jump ship how many times you want to do it or whatever, there's going to be consequences for your reactions. Okay, God is not going to put up with this nonsense. Okay, so these spiritual applications, like I said during this whole program, think about this before we end this up. The Watchers was manipulating him. Just think about it. In a figurative sense, through the dog, there was always a watcher of some shape or form, humanly stance and a spiritual stance and an angelic stance to a certain extent. Right, there's technology there that was given by the fallen. Like all this technology, man cannot do this alone. Okay, man can only replicate it, re-engineer it, or whatever. Okay, there's no way that man has been able to do a small chip that can fit in the tip of a pin, your pinky or the tip of a pen. There's no way that we can do it. No way. It doesn't matter how you swing it. Fallen angel technology has been around for a long time. There's nothing new under the sun. And when you think about these powers and principalities and wickedness and darkness and high places, that's what we've been talking about this whole time. And I think that's where we're getting at, to where Stargate, the Project Stargate, all these different applications that's coming down into our realm. Surveillance on the highest order. I know, Brother Adam, you got some stuff to talk about that real quick. But surveillance every which way. Could you imagine? Could you imagine reaching into the grocery store? They already have this technology in some places. I think out Seattle. Could you imagine reaching in and you see a camera, but you're pulling an item off the shelf? Just think about it. How much privacy is everybody willing to give up for a little bit of tech and just something that can be taken away just instantly, just like they've been doing straight into this whole program. Truman had to go through traumatic experiences, and it molded his mind a certain way, and he was trying to articulate to get out, but he never could because there was all this wickedness around, people pulling him in all kinds of different directions. And it's symbolic. There were so many things in this film that literally was, I think, a good Truman Show decoded mystery conspiracy theater, Brother Adam. But if you want to end us out, well, I'll tell you what. Do you have any last words? Anything else you want to conclude here to the program? Because I think it was an awesome program. I thank you for being part of it, and I thank everybody for being in the chat and being part of this on FOJC Sunday Night Live. We are live. I'm so glad that we could be able to pull this program off tonight. But Brother Adam, you have any last words for the audience here tonight?
I'd say, like a lot of these decodes, especially like the stuff that you guys have been doing, they're pretty. I think they're really awesome because they expose a lot of the plans of the enemy. And the thing is that if you think about like how our brain works and everything, and you think about our different senses that we have, when you're watching these films and stuff, to the average person, it engages your sight, it engages your hearing, and it engages in time because you're having a linear story being told. That's multiple senses that you're being fed an idea. And all of these movies, they are all deep down, they're going to be feeding you some kind of an idea and a lot of times it's something like this, like a Gnostic theological some kind of Gnostic thing. Most of the time, it's going to be perverting God's word, and it's just so important to make sure that we're studying to show ourselves approved, that we're taking that time to commune with God in prayer and in reading our word, because it so many things are out there that are trying to dissuade us and to attack the truth of what God has lovingly written to us in his word. And oftentimes the only way out, the only way to really get through it all is to stick with what he's written to us, and he will not lead us astray. And yeah, just follow, just we gotta stick close. We gotta stick close to Jesus Christ in these days, and and yeah, just stick with him. And
Well,
thank you guys very much for having me too.
it was an honor, like always, Brother Adam. Well said words to end us out here. But I just want to give everybody a shout out. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. We missed you, Brother David, but you are just watching this thing. Big bucket of popcorn, I hope, and some coffee. And I hope it was a blessing to you, Miss Donna. But everybody, on behalf of the FOJC team, I just want to just say we're so thankful for everybody being here on every Sunday night. Every show that we go up on, DLC, FOJC, we are super, super, truly blessed. And thank you all for the love and support. It is an honor and a blessing. And I hope y'all enjoyed the Truman Show Decoded Mystery Conspiracy Theater. Brother Adam, it was an honor and and we are
Something like
back. We
that.
are back together. We are back together. But I'm gonna end us out of here. So Adam, I have one thing to say. I have a few things to say to you, just in case I don't ever see you again. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. You feel me, Adam?